You're listening to WZYE 95.9 FM. You are listening to WZYE 95.9 FM, the most influential name in Caribbean radio in the tri-state area. Broadcasting from East Orange, New Jersey, the most influential name in Caribbean radio, WZYE 95.9 FM. You're listening to WZYE 95.9 FM. You are listening to WZYE 95.9 FM, the most influential name in Caribbean radio in the tri-state area. Broadcasting from East Orange, New Jersey, the most influential name in Caribbean radio, WZYE 95.9 FM.
And of course, let me say a special hello to all the WZYE 95.9 FM listeners. Yes, people. It's in the village with the dark triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we come to you every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. That's Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. And if you are new joining us and you don't know who the dark you don't know what is this dark triplets thing? That's a young lady by the name of Diana. And as I say Diana, let me bring in Diana. It's Diana. But her real name is Waveney Diana Benskin.
Get it right.
Get it right, man. Don't get it twisted.
Nope.
And then we have, of course, we have the guy called the G is no other than 𝗪𝗵𝗁𝗘𝗧𝗦, the storm. No, 𝗪𝗵𝗁𝗘𝗧𝗦 is the phantom.
The phantom.
Diana Benskin is the storm.
Hey, not Beckskin. Benskin. Watch yourself now. People get busted for calling me that in school, you know. Watch yourself.
You know a little tight tongue. Hey, but listen to this, Diana. We 4 loyalists inside early tonight, you know.
Hey! Reporting for the job.
Lana. Of course, Lana. Bless good night to you. Cindy MJC. I don't call her by her right name, eh?
That's right.
And my 𝗪𝗥𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 compatriot, Curtis Montresard, boy. Inside early tonight. We ain't kicking tonight, boy.
I'm drinking O2. H2O.
You know, you doing this drinking thing too much, and this every time you come in is
H2O flavored with strawberries and raspberries and blueberries.
All right. All kind of things.
You see the face, no wrinkles and no gray hair and stuff.
Now let me say hello to 𝗧𝗥𝗚𝗘𝗧𝗦. 𝗪𝗵𝗁𝗘𝗧𝗦. 𝗧𝗧𝗏, where are you joining us from? 𝗧𝗏? 𝗧𝗏 seems to be new here in the village. 𝗧𝗏, where are you joining us from?
Get the girl name right now. Get the girl name right.
Is 𝗧𝗏?
Who's that? Miss Diana, the real sounding Trini to the bone.
And
yes.
you just pulling your legs, right?
Yeah, I was a 𝗪𝗏𝗁𝗘𝗧𝗏.
𝗪𝗏𝗁𝗘𝗧𝗏.
Bajan
Lana drinking cornmeal porridge with spices.
What? I had the women on a binge, boy.
Yeah. Gary, what are you drinking?
Baba.
Punching, boy. Punching.
Gary in front of that company on the Eastern Maid in Laventille.
Fernandez.
I just promoted Fernandez. And I think Fernandez is the best pharmaceutical company for COVID.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, God. It's 𝗧𝗏𝗃. It's G or G? It's G or it's GEE or it's G or G?
Hey, watch yourself. Don't be mashing up. Put your name.
It's 𝗧𝗏𝗃. Do you have a 𝗧𝗏𝗃 in the house?
Yeah. 𝗧𝗏𝗃. 𝗧𝗏𝗃. So wait now, if it's GEE, that's not G?
No, G.
G.
Yeah.
That's Diana. Diana grew up.
You from 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗘𝗧𝗦, you know.
So what 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗃 got to do with anything?
All the French people like to mispronounce people's things.
All right, Geeta says, "Oh yes, sir. I'm new to this station. Blessings to everyone. Where are you joining us from? Geeta? Is Geeta right?
Yes.
Right,
You know, my nickname is Greta.
Gita.
My
Geeta,
Geeta, my nickname is Greta. Greta. All right.
Okay, all right. Well, you had to put that in there, right?
Yes.
But you know, Gary.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
Gary, you know, your girl who are putting the go along, get along P&M gang, right? You know, she had an interview on BBC.
Oh boy.
Which one is that? Which one is that?
Rhoda Barrett, boy.
What?
Boy, the girl, you know, and when I listen to the thing, I say, you know, boy, you see, that's why I put she in the go along, get along gang, because, watch, you going to do an interview on BBC, right? At least if you go on BBC and they ask you about how things going in Trinidad with COVID-19 and all this kind of thing, you go give them some facts. The woman talk everything about the candlelight vigil, the flambeau vigil, the all kind of vigil. She talk about everything else, and she missed out Easter. I say, boy, that's why she's part of the go along, get along P&M gang.
Well, I happy you saw that.
But listen, all right, I will put it up just now. We have another new one, Just Awake. Those glasses make you look like Groucho Marx.
Yes.
Eyebrows area.
Yes. Thank you.
Ansem, the rate you're going to UN, she gonna recruit you, you know.
I thought she was talking about me, you know.
No, it's me she talking. It's me talking. Groucho, yes. Yeah, I better looking at Groucho though.
Just where are you joining us from? Okay, we have Danny Thomas also. This is cousin. Hold on, let me see who's this. Danny Thomas.
The Oprah brand I'm wearing. Yeah.
Cousin Annie tuning in. Cousin Annie, where you from? Just tell us where you from, and Danny Thomas, where you from? Of course, we have guys in the house locked on from Virginia. So let me get Gary's friend.
Oh, cousin Annie. I wonder if it's my cousin. I don't know.
You have a cousin?
A cousin named Annie. I don't know if it's her.
From where?
Is that my cousin Annie?
Wait now, Danny Thomas, Donna's cousin from Queens. Which Donna, boy? I wonder if that is my wife, boy.
Oh, no. I have a cousin named Annie.
Donna's cousin.
She doesn't live in Queens.
And somebody that's your family, and somebody trying to say something to you then.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Hey, D, you know. The shadow. Hold up, boy. The shadow. Justice says the shadow, but you are very pretty. North Carolina here. Who pretty? Yeah, I know. Justa, thank you.
Thank you, Justa.
I appreciate the compliment. He says you're very pretty. I like that. Well, they can't see Gary to tell Gary whether he's pretty or not. So.
Hey, you talking about? They don't tell men that they're pretty. They say they're handsome. It's not you they're talking about. So what? Move your carcass. Step aside.
Well, you know, the phantom can only disclose himself to certain people.
Step aside. They're talking about you, Buddy. They're talking about the African queen on the screen. Watch yourself, boy.
Wait, Danny say yes, your wife Donna.
You don't even know your family.
I don't know my family, boy. Cindy asked me what I drink tonight.
Oh.
To be honest with you, I just had a bottle of water, yes.
Do we have the honorable minister hanging out in the background or no?
Not yet. Patricia, welcome. Patricia Munilal. She said yes, Gary handsome.
Yes, for this. For this.
Gary, boy. But listen, all you know, my name is Ansem, and the ladies just call me handsome for short.
No, the tongue tie.
Oh, you really? Linda G as well. Welcome, Linda. Linda MG. Linda, what the MG stand for? I only get in people business. let me see if I get this let me get this thing with this young lady, the guy with your friend.
𝗪𝗪𝗘𝗧𝗦?
Rhoda Barrett. Hold on. Let me see if I get this one here. Where Rhoda Barrett is.
I'm trying to get 𝗪𝗪𝗬 on the show.
Yeah, who's 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘?
The lady with the comical lady now, who wants she NIS benefits now.
Oh, yes, she funny into it, boy. She real funny into it. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, boy.
She funny into it. Let me listen to our friend, Gary friend, Rhoda Barrett.
Feelings.
There we go.
We don't know feelings. Let me let Ollie listen to what is I actually said now, right?
The announcement was made earlier this week, and most other English-speaking islands on the region have managed to keep their COVID death toll really low. So to find out what's behind the spiking cases and deaths in this oil-exploiting state, I caught up with Trinidadian vlogger Rhoda Barrett.
This would be our second wave, and it would have come on the heels of having been very good for a fairly decent stretch of time, and then becoming very fatigued, dropping your guard, then things picking up to the point where we are at a little over 600 deaths now, and people stopped practicing mask wearing and social distancing in the way they ought to have been mask wearing and social distancing.
What do you think has contributed to it?
There was a murder that took place late in January. People were very upset about that murder, and people got together to hold vigils, to hold protests, and they were having these nightly protests in different communities, not observing all of the protocols. Then Easter time would come around, and we would have had it's a long weekend holiday for us. Then people who were holding private parties, we still had a lot of private events taking place. So it would have been a series of events that would have led to super spread.
Ollie hear me call anybody name inside there yet? I talked about a series of events that would have led to super spreading. I talked about the murder leading to the vigils. I talked about private events. I talked about people still going to fetes, etc. Let me continue.
In Trinidad, you had in April just 9,000, over 9,500 cases or so. And yet within the space of a month, by May, it had risen to 23,000. So that's a staggering jump just within the space of a month. So if the people let their guard down so much,
March is when you started to see the numbers increasing. And that's because pockets of social gathering and poor mask wearing behavior happening in many communities across the country.
Are the health authorities taking any responsibility for perhaps not pushing the message forward as strongly as they should have?
I can't say that the message hasn't been pushed forward, but what we need to grasp is this. We have a situation where some portions of the population behave anti-scientific to some extent. We've had people who have denied the presence of COVID. We've had people say, and I'm talking about persons at the highest levels of government here, saying that sunlight, we're blessed with sunlight, and sunlight will kill COVID. We've had senators argue that bars should be left open so that persons can go on, anybody who is in danger of getting COVID can go and drink alcohol to avoid getting COVID. Members of Parliament who have medical degrees argue that the government should be using hydrochloroquine on patients when all of the science is pointing to different things entirely. And all of the science is telling you that this thing is contagious in a particular way. And of course, if you've got people in high places saying things like that, it creates a culture of ignorance where the disease is concerned. It creates a particular sort of mindset, and so you don't have a collective approach to dealing with the pandemic.
and she is a Trinidadian blogger.
Folks, that's the whole interview there. At least that is the clip that the BBC would have played. It's not the entire interview because we would have discussed other things, but those are the parts of the interview that they chose to go with. Now, what I would say is this. The BBC reached out to me on...
All you see something? Oh, let me take that off. Hold on, man. All you see why I put that young lady in the go along, get along gang, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's be honest. Hey, wait. Hold up, boy. Wait now, boy. We have something running in the background there, boy. Let me stop that. Hold on. Let me stop that one. Oh, God. The video come up right after that one, yes. But listen to this, right? You know, that's why I put 𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 in the go along, get along, P&M gang, right? And Steve Tree Lopez, you are right. When you are part of the P&M go along, get along gang, you don't mention things like the Venice, and you don't mention things like the porous borders, right? You go to the candlelight vigils, right? And you ignore one of these and in the Ministry of Health conference, who was it? Was it Dr. Avery Hines? Who talked about what happened over Easter, and then the next conference he come back and he changed the tune, right? But you see, all I ask people like 𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 and them is to, I know you're part of the go along, get along P&M gang. It's okay. But how come 𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦, you never mention about the Venezuelan and them, and that the first P1 variant that came into Trinidad and Tobago admitted was a Venezuelan, all right? And they talk about what is the impact of the P1 variant now in Trinidad and Tobago. But when you're part of the go along, get along P&M gang, you have to ignore those things. And it's sad. She had a great opportunity. BBC is big. BBC world big. She had a great opportunity to give factual information and speak truth to power. But being that she's part of the go along, get along P&M gang, she refused to speak truth to power. But don't worry, Rhoda. We will continue to call all out. We will continue to all because you see, once you're part of that go along, get along gang, oh boy, it's just unbelievable. So we go continue to call all out. That is all right? So here we do. We go do early o'clock here. Let's bring in Tommy, and we're gonna bring in David Tanku. Let's add Tommy. Tommy, how you doing, my friend?
Very good, Doc 𝗧𝗧𝗦. How's my family today?
Everybody's fantastic, man.
You are loved outside, child. You are loved.
Yeah, we love you.
Yes, remember Dr. Mulila said that, eh?
Yeah.
Remember that.
What's now? Let me bring in one of your favorites here in the village of the 𝗪𝗪𝗘𝗧𝗦. Yeah.
Welcome.
Dave, you have to call it. Dave, you they're calling you our favorite in the village of the 𝗪𝗪𝗘𝗧𝗦, but you get a real big promotion, boy.
I'm loving it. Thank you very much, fellas. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
You know, it's always a pleasure when you join us here in the village with the 𝗪𝗪𝗘𝗧𝗦 and the outside child Tommy, and we always appreciate that, you know, whenever you are called on in very short notice, you know, you come in and you joined us, and we really appreciate that.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be addressing you guys tonight. Very much an honor. I appreciate the fact that you all continue to be very interested in what's going on in our home country and to highlight the plights of citizens outside there. We really do appreciate your voices. Thank you so much.
You know, to be honest with you, Dave, to me, that means a lot to me, because this fight that we are fighting here, boy, sometimes we like we toiling in the vineyard for zero, boy.
Yeah. I understand. I know the feeling, Chief. I know the feeling, but believe me, your work has not gone unrecognized. A lot of what you guys have been doing has shaken up the government to commit to certain kinds of actions and to help the citizens that you all have actually been trying to help. Without you all outside there fighting the fight, I think several hundreds of persons who are back in Trinidad and Tobago would not have been back here. And a lot of people would not have even been aware of how bad this thing is now for citizens who have been stranded outside. So your work has been recognized. Well done, guys. Keep it up.
And we appreciate that, man. We appreciate that.
Very much.
So Dave, we see, I call it two things. I call it the vaccine chaos and the vaccine disaster that happened beginning last Thursday and actually continue. And it was nice to see the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago finally, kind of, show some emotion and apologize to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, for what happened. But I felt that if they were proactive enough, those things could have been avoided.
But my friend, let me tell you this much. It's not that the information is not outside there. When they decided to launch this program, first come, first serve, they must have known the number of persons who would have applied, who would have met the age criteria, and who would have had comorbidities. There were hundreds of persons who had applied via the telephone lines. So they knew that there were a lot of people who have great interest in securing the vaccines. What the minister said then is that he had everything in place. He said that he had security in place, he had staffing, etc., etc. What we saw on Wednesday was a travesty. When we had old people lining up. I mean, I had a constituent whose last name is Ali, who went in. She left home, and she's 69 years old. Left home very, very early in the morning and reached the center at, this would have been about 6:30. She got a number. They eventually gave her a number. After many long, hot, she was in the sun, she eventually got a number. She got number 71. They had 50 vaccines. The staffing, now the staff at the center got buffed, got ranted and raved and berated, etc. But it's not their fault. They would not have known how many vaccines they were going to get. As a matter of fact, I'm told that nurses were trying to call around to get more vaccines, and I congratulate them for their initiatives. But the government would have known the number of persons who were in desperate need, because that was one of the problems with the WhatsApp messaging system. It was oversubscribed. Having messed it up on Wednesday, they continued on Thursday with this alphabet A to E. The Elections and Boundaries Commission has a listing on its website, and you can find out on average how many people are in which age group. How many people are in which alphabetical listing based on their last name. And if you did the calculations, you would have come up about 25% of the population of Trinidad and Tobago has a last name beginning between A and E. 25% of the population. And still they only give the centers 50 vaccines. It was designed to fail. And for me, you are bringing out the elderly. Now this lady went back, my constituent who is 69, she went back on Thursday. And again, despite reaching there at 6 o'clock this time, because she decided she wanted to be early, despite reaching there at 6 o'clock, again, she was not able to get a vaccine. Now she had to take money out of her pension. Well, she had to take money out of her family to get support, etc., inconvenience everybody else, to make sure that they get there early enough. Stand in the hot sun in the first day and in the second day in drizzle and still not get through. Spend her money, inconvenience herself. And you know what the Prime Minister described this unfortunate travesty of justice as? The Prime Minister described Wednesday and Thursday as an inconvenience. People were put into duress, and these, mind you, and I want to reinforce that these persons are the persons who the government decided very early on were those who were most exposed, most at risk. So they wanted to give vaccines whenever they got vaccines to the frontline workers and the elderly and those with comorbidities who we did not want to get sick.
Which was a great idea, right? That was a great idea.
Yes, I agree. That
was a fantastic idea.
It is in fact the right way to go. And I mean, excellent. But the actual implementation fell apart drastically. So today, several months after we started vaccinating people, several months after, we have persons who are still today on the frontline workers who have not been vaccinated. We have persons who are elderly who have not been vaccinated. In fact, a lot of persons who are elderly have not been vaccinated, which we could have seen from the attendance. So I'm curious as to what exactly the government's priority truly is. If you say your priority is to vaccine a certain group of people and you have not demonstrated that urgency in vaccinating them, then something is wrong.
You know,
In any case, these are old people. You can't treat them like that, man. That's wrong.
You know what we like to do here in the village, right? Is we like to deal with facts, and we don't like to deal with innuendos and rumors. Yeah? So I took some time and I looked at it. 0.007%, which is 10,050 people of the population, have been fully vaccinated in Trinidad and Tobago.
Correct.
Let me repeat that. 0.007. That is less than 1% of the population in Trinidad and Tobago. This is facts. Factual. Right? Now let's go. When we look at the total person that are tested positive, 13%, 28,422 people of the total person tested have tested positive for the virus in Trinidad and Tobago. So think about it. Think about this. We have total person tested were 207,000 people. 13% of them have tested positive in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? I mean, this is, and let me go on. 2%, 28,422 people of the population have tested positive for the coronavirus. And the last statistics, 11%, 153,983 of the population have received their first dose of vaccination. I mean, these are facts.
Agreed.
And I really don't know what else to say. In that we have already, and I've said this, I've said this, and Dave, you know I'm a supporter of the PNM, right? You know that, you know that by now. But I am not part of the go along, get along PNM gang. Okay, I am not. And we have made suggestions here to the government. I think Gita said the live is sticking. Let us know if the live is sticking, people. We have made several suggestions to the government with respect to where they could improve certain things, right? And it seemed like we in the diaspora, there's 350,000 of us in the diaspora, and we have been totally ignored.
Yes. This is a time when there should be all hands on deck. Everybody should be working together. Foreign, local, everybody, in ways that, to find ways that we could help each other through this difficult time. The government has obviously decided that they want to go it alone. If they were doing it well, then kudos. But they are not doing it well. They are failing at every step, and they're blaming everybody else. You would have listened to press conferences by the Honorable Prime Minister where he blames everybody for the chaos that we are in. This cannot continue. We really do need to fix this thing. People are dying while people are playing political games. While the government plays political blame games and blames everybody else, citizens are dying. We have citizens who have been outside of Trinidad and Tobago, stuck and unable to come back for more than a year. Those things cannot be accepted.
Diana, Gary, Tommy. Well, let me say this. We have also suggested to the government that the government should, the exile and stranded citizens who are fully vaccinated should be allowed to come back home. And we have a little difference in here. We have a little difference in the village, but that's fine. Should be allowed to come back home with a negative PCR test. And when they reach home, they could do a rapid test. And then they could go to their house and quarantine. Right? We have made that suggestion months now. Months. But however, certain people in Trinidad are able to leave the country, come to America, get vaccinated, and come back to Trinidad and Tobago. Right? But poor, disadvantaged people is not allowed to do that. Something wrong. Something wrong.
Honorable Minister, this is
Yeah.
Diana Benskin. How are you doing, sir?
Honorable MP.
Our
I'm
MP,
not, I'm
yeah.
not a minister,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, forgive me, sir. Educator sister. Okay,
you, Jay.
Honorable MP. What I've noticed, right? I'm Trinbagonian by birth. I have Barbadian connections too. I have both nationalities. What I know, I've never voted in Trinidad and Tobago because I migrated at an early age, right? But
Right.
I've lived in Trinidad and Tobago. I've been educated there. That's my culture. What I've noticed going on in Parliament is a kind of a sandbox thing. And the other day, when Miss MP, correct me, answer, Rudalal asked, right,
Dr. Rudal Munidal.
right, the doctor, he asked about the monitoring of elderly persons once they've been vaccinated, and the speaker, ruled them out of order. I believe in a democracy. An effective opposition is there to promote and ensure that there's legislative excellence, and the constant presence of a recognized opposition is an obstacle to something called despotism. And I know Mr. Tanku will understand when I say despotism, the exercise of absolute power. I find that in Trinidad and Tobago, what is on, to me, seems to be unfolding, borders on, you're buffing the media and you're buffing the people, and people are, an atmosphere of fear is emerging. Can you speak on that, sir?
I would be honored to. In fact, a good example of that is not just Dr. Munidal's query, but the fact that on Monday last, during what we call the Standing Finance Committee, where the government would have brought their budget, a supplementary variation of appropriation, where they wanted more money to spend on Trinidad and Tobago. During that conversation and that discussion, the opposition is allowed to ask questions. We ask questions based on trying to determine what the government has been doing with the money it's been allowed so far, and what they propose to do with the money that they're asking for now, because this is taxpayers' money. That discussion was shut down prematurely, totally shut down, without us being able to ask questions. Now, this is not the first time. This is not, unfortunately, I'm sure it will not be the last time either. In Parliament on Wednesday, a similar situation occurred where the government just decided that they wanted to shut down the Parliament early. When the opposition is elected, and for me, I can speak for myself. When I was elected, I saw an oath of office. And that oath of office requires me not to serve just the constituents of Oakbush West. I represent Trinidad and Tobago. I represent 1.4 million citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So even if I ask a question on financing for item A or item B, even if I ask questions on how the government is spending money for vehicle repairs or salaries and COLA or covert operations, for example, I think that I am reflecting questions that the general population may ask. But clearly, the answers are not just coming to me, the answers are coming for the population. So when we ask questions, when we raise issues, the expectation is that the government will answer. That is how this system of democracy works. You're in government, we're in opposition. Our job is to hold you to account. When we try to hold you to account, however, and it's not just the opposition, you would have found that anybody who asks questions of the government are treated as if they are attacking democracy, when so far it is the other way around. Your job, if you have a question, shouldn't you ask? We are in the opposition, we're in the Parliament. Our responsibility is to hold the government to account, and we have been trying to, but at every stage, the government hides behind the Green Book. They hide behind the standing orders of the Parliament. They hide behind this, standing orders of the Parliament. Because what they want to do is they're not interested in providing information. They're not interested in providing documentary proof of things that are going on. They're not interested in informing the population of Trinidad and Tobago. All that they're interested in doing is petty politics. So they will malign characters, they will make allegations and innuendo of all sorts, but they will not provide the information. That, ma'am, I totally agree with you, Storm. That is an example of a government that is heading in a particular direction of preventing citizens from getting access to information, and that can only be wrong. They passed something called the procurement legislation to prevent loans, borrowings generally, and certain kinds of expenditure from being oversight, from having what was called the procurement regulator, from having oversight of those kinds of borrowings and expenditure. That too is an attempt to shut down access to information. We saw the worst possible example in the Parliament on Wednesday, where the Attorney General stood up and referenced somebody who had filed a Freedom of Information request for information and claimed that he was not willing to provide the information because that information was requested, and named an individual as a campaign manager for a candidate, which was not true. So it's not just that they're hiding the information. The government is willing to manipulate the truth rather than provide information for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And that, why hide? If you have nothing to hide, why not provide the information? Citizens are operating in a vacuum, and that's wrong. Today, we don't know what the unemployment level is at in Trinidad and Tobago, because the last unemployment figures we had, I think, was for 2019. So how are you going to plan for anything if you don't know what the problems specifically are?
Now, Dave, some people may ask the question, if the opposition is just there to oppose everything that the government puts on the table, as opposed to opposing certain things that doesn't benefit the country as a whole, they're just opposing everything. Everything the government put on the table, we're going to oppose that. We're going to oppose that. How do you answer that question?
That is a very valid question, answer. That's a very valid question. The thing is that that's the image that the government has portrayed. However, we have supported a lot of the government's legislation. As a matter of fact, what the government has done is brought half-baked legislation to the parliament, and it has been recommendations and amendments by the current opposition that has improved those pieces of legislation which we have put in place. We have supported the government in multiplicity of occasions in legislation and other matters that they have brought to Parliament. The leader of the opposition has offered an olive branch even more than a year ago when this pandemic first emerged to meet with the government. We made recommendations to them then. We are not about fighting down government because we have to fight down government. We are not opposing for opposition's sake. We are willing to partner with anybody, including the government, because if we all pass good legislation, it works to the benefit of the citizens. If we do the right things, it works to the benefit of the citizens. And in a pandemic, there's no room for error. Every time something fails, somebody dies. So we really do want to make sure that the government does the right things for the right reason. The government is not inclined to work with the opposition because clearly they have things to hide. Now, just to go back to the point you raised, I can repeat that the opposition has on a multiplicity of occasions supported the legislation that the government has brought forward openly, because it's in the national interest. But when there are things that we do not believe to be in the national interest, we will oppose them, aggressively so.
But Dave, at some point, we here at WZYE 95.9 FM and in the village with the 𝗪𝗪𝗘𝗧𝗦, we felt that the opposition were very late to the party with regards to exile and stranded citizens. We really felt kind of strongly about that. Well, let me say, we're late to the party with respect to exile and stranded citizens, with respect to all these thousands of citizens being locked out, and could not return to Trinidad. Many of us felt that, you guys were kind of late to the party.
All right.
How do you answer that?
I hear you. The thing is, though, that we were not. I was in contact with several persons. There were several letters written by members of parliament, because I was not a member of parliament at that time. I was the general secretary of the UNC. And I'm familiar with quite a few persons who I was trying to lobby to get legal action against the government of the day at that time. We offered support through other agencies, to friends and relatives and associates that we would have had abroad while the government was doing what they were doing. But you must accept that the government locked out everybody else. You had one man, the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Stuart Young, at that point in time, who had total control as to who came and who went. Total control. And he literally ignored every initiative by the opposition, by others. And it's not just us, it's not just the opposition in the parliament. There were other NGOs and other groups that tried to coordinate this thing. To be frank, maybe we did not do sufficient in terms of getting the volume together, because we were working with some individuals here and some individuals here and 2 individuals here and 3 individuals here. We were not dealing with it en masse, but a lot of work was actually pursued by the opposition and by NGOs to try to get our stranded citizens back. I have several relatives who are still stranded abroad, who are, I don't want to say that they're being victimized, but these are persons who are not able to fund a hotel stay, but who had to end up in the United States of America, and one person elsewhere, begging for somebody to take them in. Inappropriate, completely inappropriate.
So Dave, we heard the Prime Minister there. I have to say, and I've said this honestly, Dr. Rowley is a genius, because what Dr. Rowley do is, he give you a marble last week, and he tell you there's a great possibility that we gonna open the borders, and I tell people, I say, well, you hold it, and all of a sudden he come back there and he say, oh, I want back my marble. I take him back to marble because
I think you described that beautifully in real Trini language. Last week, if you had listened to the Prime Minister, you swear everybody going to get vaccines tomorrow. Last week, if you listen to the Prime Minister, you swear when they're putting something in place and everybody who want to come back home to their homes
coming back
to be facilitated.
Yeah.
This week, and we got all the headlines because he says it to get the headlines. He says it to get the message to the media. And then this week he comes and the story is completely different. You can't, and it's not that he did not know when he said it last time. He must have known. No, otherwise, don't say it.
No, he's a genius. I have said the man is a genius, and I told people here. Ulrich is a genius. Ulrich just come in, last week, and listen. People in the exile and stranded citizens had their hopes up. They're saying, finally, boy, we have some light at the end of the tunnel, and we will get to go back home before Christmas. We go get some ham, lamb, and jam. We get all kind of thing. We good. We go get some doubles. We go get callaloo. We go get yam. We go to Tobago. We go get whatever there's getting to Tobago. All kind of things.
They'll see our families. They'll see their families. Let me just ask you. Let me just remind you of something. Remember, there was a system that they put in place, an electronic system. You had to apply and submit a set of documentation. And then the minister said you had a whole set of applications. And in the midst of all of that, they changed the system. And you had to reapply and start over from zero. This man is not, maybe he's a genius. Because in some of these cartoons, you see the good genius and you see the evil genius. Because what he's done is raise the hopes of Trinidadians and Tobagonians abroad. What he's done is create an illusion of comfort, when the fact is that up to today, we don't know when people will be allowed to freely come back to this country. But they're making an effort.
But they think about this, right? A few months ago, people who lived in Trinidad were saying that keep them exiled stranded citizens out there, because them go bring back COVID-19 into the country. We don't want them come home. Where would that narrative gone? Where that narrative gone? Where it gone? All of a sudden it disappear. We using science. It's science we using. We following the science. We following. What's the science now? Where the science gone?
The image, partner. What the government has done well is misdirect citizens. So they were telling citizens in Trinidad and Tobago that these Trinidadians coming from foreign lands, could bring in infection, and therefore we lock the borders and we bringing them in chirrup, drip by drip. And while they're saying that, the back borders are wide open. all kind of variants are coming in. This system of locking our citizens out has failed. Totally failed.
Miserably.
Why is it going to take weeks and months to put a mechanism in place to allow citizens to come back? If you lock out these people and they could only come back when you provide results that says that you are not COVID positive, how is it, if you've done that for the last year, how is it that we still have this runaway? We still have hundreds, 300 or 400 every single day testing positive. And mind you, they reduce the number of people they're testing to create an illusion that less people are positive. But their prescription for the solution has failed. And what it has done is isolate our citizens. So you are right. We have citizens in Trinidad watching with
Cookie eye.
They're watching everybody coming from our board like if they are criminals. Let me remind you of something else too. In December last year, because we come into December again, in December last year, some person who was not a resident of Trinidad and Tobago because she was living in the United States was given a preferential opportunity to come to Trinidad and Tobago for vacation. And we had persons who were living in Trinidad and Tobago, working in Trinidad and Tobago, who were excluded. That person just happened by some strange coincidence to be related to the Prime Minister. You see, when they want to fix something, they will fix it. But they do not see the urgency of fixing Trinidadians stranded abroad. It was very unfortunate.
But one thing we got to say, though, Dave, is that we have to say this, and we speak truth to power here in the village with the dark triplets. Sense and people, well, you know, some people, they can't understand how I could say this, right? But I like to speak truth to power. Since 𝗧𝗥𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 has become Minister of National Security, things have been better for exile and stranded citizens. When Stuart Young was the Minister of National Insecurity, he was the worst thing. He was the worst thing for exile and stranded citizens. That man had no compassion, no passion fruit. It had passion fruit in Trinidad. No kind of passion at all. Right? And we were so glad to see that guy go. And I personally have my beef with 𝗧𝗥𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 because he's the MP for my constituency. When I get back to that, I say he's the MP for 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀 West, not 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀 Because I'm from 𝗪𝗪𝗁. You understand? But the job as, and I'm specifically addressing exile and stranded citizens then, he has done a way better job than Stuart Young, who was the Minister of National Insecurity. And we have to call a spade, right? And we cannot be...
he has done, the most important thing is to communicate. I brought him to before he became minister, so that he, as a representative of the government, could brief the government what's taking place on this side. You know, because we try relaying that sort of information. But Stuart Young did everything to dodge me. All right? I mean, look, I messaged Mr. Hines about a certain individual stranded in a certain part and had a death in the family, bam, exemption. Another young lady, before she could even get the exemption, Caribbean Airlines called her, and she been suffering. She had a breakdown, you know what I mean? And he responded, you know. So he has offered to work with us, and he wanted me to relay the information about what's going on, where and who needs help, and that's what we've been doing. But the border closure and this exemption policy has to be removed because it's putting a lot of people in distress. Look, I got people right now. I just got a phone call while he was on the program here, but somebody that with a death in the family. I have 2 or 3 other people with death in the family. I have people whose parents don't know themselves in the hospital, and they're trying to get home and they can't get on the flight. I mean, so it's a real battle, to get people home. So this exemption policy, we have to fight the government as fierce as possible to get it removed, because it's really causing chaos. It has caused our people to go homeless and hungry, and we have sent money. We have rescued people. I have picked up people myself. You know, one lady was taken to die in her house, you know, and stuff like that. So, I mean, this exemption policy and border closure towards our citizens has to be removed immediately.
And Gary, you are so right, because look at this, right? The government had a policy for anybody to just come, and come line up and vaccinate. And the Prime Minister realized that, boy, Terence, whoever put that in place, only make a real boo-boo there. That was vaccine disaster and vaccine chaos. So we throw it out the window. Fine, right? You're going to try something different now. It's the same thing they could have done with exile and stranded citizens. And it's been too long, man. This exemption policy is a wicked and evil policy. I've said that from day one. And the science never proved that locking out your citizens was going to prevent COVID-19 from coming to the country. And it has been proven. It has been proven accurate. It was never any science to lock your own people and leave them out of the country.
Where else in the world has this happened? Where else in the world has it happened where at the very start they locked out their citizens? Which country in the world has done that and continues to have done that for over a year? I want to reference Gary. Gary has been my real soldier in this thing. I commend him every opportunity I get because Gary knows I've sent people to him who have received significant support in getting home. But I think that our expectations have become so low based on the incompetence of Stuart Young. Our expectations have become so low that a little bit of interaction makes us feel really, really good. But what we are fighting, what citizens are fighting, what you all have been doing to help citizens is helping citizens fight for what is in fact their right. I mean, Aditya just made a point that I think is very valid. These incoming citizens, the citizens who are coming into Trinidad and Tobago, probably are more secure than citizens walking the ground because they would have had 2 PCR tests. They would have been tested abroad and in Trinidad. So they're more likely than anybody else walking the street would have been able to provide a document that says, hey, look, I am COVID-free.
Yeah, and we have said here, and Dave, this is what we like here, boy. This is what we like about this program. And now I've invited several PNM people to come on the program, and so far, I think one person comes so far. Paris from Pleasantville. I think he's a councillor in Pleasantville.
He's a councillor, yes.
Yeah, he come on the program, because I don't know, he must be like me. I don't know if the rest of them like me now, but I think they have implemented the 4 Ds with me. They dismiss me, they discredit me, right? They demonize me, right? Right? We have the 4 Ds in here with us to talk about it, But Dave, when we come in here, I'm trying to solve more questions for you. You understand? And we debate and we discuss things, and that is what this thing is supposed to be about. You afraid to send some baby in here because all of a sudden, by the way, most of my PNM friends tell me I go on UNC now. I don't know if you guys have something for me.
Dave, we gotta hook him up, Dave, we gotta hook him up.
I don't know if there's something in UNC that you all have that I don't have.
Honesty is something that we would have had that you may not have had in your existing party.
But you have intelligence. We saw a level of service delivery towards our citizens that we didn't see. We saw chaos with this government from the time they hit the office there. From the country started with the petrol situation, we saw the economy collapsing. I mean, so they were more interested in themselves, fixing the Red House. And while people were going hungry, I mean, they cut the medicine, they cut the food card. I mean, you was in the midst of that, so you could elaborate more on that than that with me, But I've seen these things from the outside, It
is very unfortunate that the government continues in its actions not to be people friendly. Just to follow up on the issue that you raised just now, in last year, the government indicated that they provided by October last year over 280,000 grants to persons who were in need. But you know why they did that? This was an election run-up. As a result of the decisions taken to lock down the country and to stop this business and that business and so on, lots of persons lost their job, and the government stepped forward and provided some financial and grant assistance and food cards and food baskets and so on. But to date, those crises continue to exist. When the minister was asked in early May what he has done, you know what he did? He repeated exactly the same thing that he said in his budget in October. And what that tells you is that from October to now, those persons remained in serious distress. Food cards, the minister admitted that 7,000 persons who had applied for salary relief grant in 2020, 7,000 persons qualified. But you know why they didn't get a grant? They did not get the salary relief grant. For more than a year now, they have received nothing. They did not get it because they didn't have a bank account. You know the kind of person who does not have a bank account? Somebody with no money. And the minister, after 1 year of dealing with COVID-19, of dealing with provision of grants and so on, after 1 year, shamelessly comes and tells you, here what, 7,000 applicants couldn't get it because we didn't have a system in place to find these. How you expected these people to live? It is a real shame what this government is doing to this country. You know, it is a real shame what they have done. Right now in Trinidad and Tobago, we have two groups of persons. We used to have a middle class, an upper class, and a lower class in terms of finances. A lower income, middle income, and upper income. What we have now is an enriched upper income, and we have lower income groups. The middle income has been decimated. People who have started investing in small and medium-sized industries, people who had started small businesses and so on. The minister said 3/4 of them who applied for a grant didn't get it. So you have people who are involved in businesses who get no support, and you have poor people who they accept to be poor people who got no support. But you're spending billions. It is a true shame what this government has done to citizens of this country. And they know it and they admit it, but they will do nothing to fix it.
So Dave, we are coming up almost to the top of the hour. Can you stay with us for a few minutes longer? We're coming up to the top of the hour. Of course, folks, sure. It's In the Village with the Dark Triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. We have with us in the house, you know, Dave is his name for sure, Dave Tanku, the MP for Oropush West, you know, from the opposition UNC party, and he has taken the time to join us. So what we're going to do, we're going to go for a quick break, and then we'll be right back. And let me bring in 𝗧𝗥𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦. Maybe 𝗧𝗥𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 could tell the government something that they should do that will really be wonderful. Come 𝗧𝗥𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦, you come tell them 𝗧𝗥𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦.
Think it over, think it again. Listen, if you don't see Rash Shorty, Chalk Dust, any one of them, tell them what John say. Think it over, think it again. I sit down listening to my radio. They say they're going and jam some calypso. They say they have something brand new from Rash Shorty. So I sit down patiently listening to he. But when I hear the man start back talking preacher, and then he start to diss up at Jala, is when I hear he start calling Iowa George name. I hold my head and start to ball, not my name again. 3 years ago he say, Iowa, you singing Tata. Last year he come back with the same Tata. It look like Shorty I running out of lyrics, and he want me to teach him a few new tricks. I is the man who sing boom boom 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and every time I sing it the people does whine. The Shorty never used to treat young guys so young so crude. I way that teach him how to gamble and eat some food. Think it over, think it again, Mr. Shorty. Think it over, think it again, Hail Selassie. Think it over, think it again, 'cause everybody knows I could sing Kaiso, the party side of me. That is how I does maintain my family. Think it over, think it again, Mr. Chalk, just think it over.
You're listening to You're listening to WZYE 95.9 FM. You are listening to WZYE LP 95.9 FM, the most influential name in Caribbean radio in the tri-state area. Broadcasting from East Orange, New Jersey, the most influential name in Caribbean radio, WZYE 95.9 FM.
And of course, we are back with you. It's in the village with the dark triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. You can listen to us every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. And folks, this is one of the calls that we'll make here at WZYE 95.9 FM. We'd like you to go to our YouTube page and just subscribe to our YouTube page. We're not going to call you and tell you if you do want to share, you can share, right? But you know, guys, not what we're about here. We're about sharing information. We're about when you're coming to the village, at least you can get some brain food in the village. That's what we're about. So we have with us Dave Tanku, MP for 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 West. He's with us. He's been joining us, and we thank him so very kindly. So Dave, just before you go, I want to ask a question with respect to 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦. I mean, I think that in a pandemic, you have to look after your most vulnerable citizens in the country. And I think when you have citizens that are making $700 to $900 a fortnight, you know, and you are going to put them on the breadline for even a short period of time, even if you're going to give them 75% of their salary, how are they going to make up that other 25% of their salary to put food on the table for their family? I thought it was a big mistake for the government with respect to the 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 workers, because every penny that they get, I'm sure they have to do something to help their family. What is your position or your party's position on that?
I think the party's position has been made very clear by statements by some of our members of parliament who are directly related to the 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 issue. The 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 workers are entry-level workers. These are persons who are generally at the lower end of the income bracket. These are persons who are across the country, literally right across the country. When you have a government that cuts their salaries and allocate what, there was a bacchanal with what exactly the government has done, whether they had cut the salaries or whether they were providing a grant. It turns out that eventually they reneged and said that it was a grant that they were given to the workers and they could stay home. A grant means it's not your entitlement. The government can take it away whenever they want, however they want. And if this COVID situation continues for an extended period of time, we may end up with them not having a grant. But giving them next to nothing when these are people who are working for their income is a dangerous thing. What makes it even more dangerous is that we are in the rainy season. I live in a constituency where we have flooding. So the maintenance of our river courses and our drains and our verges is critical, and that's what 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 has been doing in the constituency of 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 West. So what they have done is not just impoverish already poor people, but they've created a space now where we can end up with significant flooding in areas that used to be maintained by 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦. These guys are simply not thinking, and what is worst about that is they are asking the persons who are least able to bear the burden. You're asking them, you're not asking, you are forcing them to bear the burden. A question was asked. I remember asking in the Standing Finance Committee if the directors, if the senior staff members were also receiving a grant or having their salaries cut. And the Minister of Local Government said that the senior managers had work to do and therefore they could not have their salaries cut. Their salaries were going to remain the same. And the directors are going to continue to receive their stipend. So why are you victimizing poor people? So it's two-phase, yeah, victimizing and impoverishing these very poor individuals, these persons who are desperately in need, and you know that they're in need. These persons also may not be able to access a salary relief grant because they are getting a small grant from the government. So you've cut out every possible source of revenue for these individuals. But I repeat that in terms of cleaning drains and river courses, etc., which is needed in my constituency at least, to prevent flooding, they've sacrificed these things. So when we have flooding in this time around now and during this rainy season, this government must be held 100% liable. I don't know what they think that these CPEP workers and others who have lost their jobs, I mean over 100 and something thousand persons would have lost their job during this period. I don't know what they think these persons should do to survive. And while that is happening, let us not forget that the government continues to award contracts to certain people. Life goes on like normal. Big businesses declaring multiple billions of profit. So for some people, life goes on. But for the persons who used to be in the middle income and now in low income, and for the low income groups, those persons continue to suffer. The government is beating them. So what they've done is create a dependency situation. We are back now where citizens are totally dependent on government, not for a job or for an opportunity to elevate themselves or to create a small business so you could find yourself and build yourself. Those things have been eliminated in favor of government coming and saying, listen, behave yourself, otherwise you will not get this kakada. They've created significant dependency. We are going backwards now to what existed way back before, where citizens depended on government for everything. If you dared in the last 10 years to create a small business for yourself, thanks to this government, your small business collapsed. Persons who would have been making doubles and selling on the side of the road, the nutsman, these enterprising individuals, they have lost their source of income now because the government decided that certain types of businesses cause COVID. Certain persons coming from abroad cause COVID. They locked down borders. I repeat that. They locked down borders so Trinidadians can't come in. But a boatload of dead people could float in without, and we're joking, you know. Persons in our country are suffering and the government simply does not care. That is wrong. When they wanted to become government, when they wanted to win election, this government promised the world. And now we see them for what they really are. Self-seeking, self-centered, only for themselves, and they're forgetting the vast majority of citizens.
Now, I don't know if Diana, Gary, or Tommy have any other questions.
I have a suggestion. Here in the US, where
and we have Dr. Faith in the back room, eh? Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So in the US here, we have a system where if you go on unemployment, they give you a bank card and they load the card with the funds for you. So what I'm suggesting is possibly we can do something like that in Trinidad and Tobago, where they assign you a card, and you either load the funds in the card, or you could even put it in directly into your bank account if you had one. But if you don't have a bank account, you load the funds into a card, and that card is not subjected to the bank fees. Like a lot of citizens are not putting their money in the bank because you see these ridiculous fees now in Trinidad and Tobago with no consideration of what's taking place in the country. So these are something that we have to fight also, because the government has not suppressed the utility company, with the electricity bill and the various bills, and they cut your lifeline. So certain things should be done simultaneously. If you're going to lock down the borders, you should have put certain things in place, or cut the funding. They should put certain things. Like our citizens out here, some has reached home and hasn't gotten any funding from that humanitarian grant. And it's a big battle between me and the consulates here. In fact, they stopped talking to me and they're trying to avoid me. So it's all kind of chaos. I am basically addressing all issues as an unofficial ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago. Night and day. Because the consulate claim that they're handling or they ignore the people. I mean, there's so many things to tell about that. But I see a lack of inclusiveness from day one with the government. They refuse to be inclusive in the planning strategy, and I think this is the recipe for the disaster that we're dealing with. We're seeing disaster upon disaster. So just please keep up the good work, and we depending on you guys there. We will provide the air support, and you guys are the ground troops, so we will fire long distance as much as we can, and let's keep the communication going so we can understand how we can help understand. So I do thank you for taking the time to join us, and I would like to have you back again, and also the others, as much as possible, so we can clarify and educate the listening diaspora on what's going on in our country.
I thank you for the opportunity. I take your suggestion that the government can do a lot more and should be doing a lot more to reach those most in need. I just saw a comment on the screen where one person said that the church was providing a lot of hampers and so on. A lot of Trinidadians have stepped up. Nikisha, it was. A lot of Trinidadians and corporate citizens have in fact stepped up and assisted tremendously and done much more for citizens of this country than the government did. I really wish that the government stand up and wake up because they have the resources to do it.
Dave, one last question before you go. How come we haven't seen in the public domain any UNC MP that have donated their salaries to their constituency? No, remember I said in the public domain. How come we haven't seen that in the public domain?
Because that's our mama guy.
Why you say that?
I've been a member of parliament since August, and I can tell you that a lot of my salary would have been spent in constituency work. But we don't celebrate that. That is what is expected. We didn't come here. You should not be an MP if you go there to make money. You go to serve people. So a lot of what I have been spending, I've done we have continuously supplied hampers throughout. Nikisha is aware. Others are aware that citizens in this country have been suffering desperately. So when an MP, especially when a government MP stands up and said, I will give my salary. So I'm doing such a gracious thing. I will give my salary for 3 months to do COVID relief, etc., in my constituency. That is hypocrisy. I'm sorry to say it because the gentleman is a gentleman, but he's misguided. Because that is a confession that the government's social services sector has collapsed, where he believes that he must now advertise that he's giving his salary. Oh gosh, we expect you to do that. You cannot be a member of parliament and not know that there are thousands of persons coming every day asking for a little hamper or a little this or a little that. That is par for course.
Hey Dave, let me say, we want to thank you so much. And Dave, Nikisha say yes, this MP is a good MP. I've always admired.
But answer. I mean, while we have David, this is something Dr. Munila said. The UNC MPs and councillors have been spending out of their own pocket and being assisted by.
Well, Gary, let's be honest though. I am sure the PNM MP is doing the same thing too. Right?
I'm not saying that. Right? I am telling you what I know. I can't.
But I just like to ask the question publicly. As a public question that I asked, and I've asked the same question on social media. But Gary, we want to thank Dave Tanku for always joining us. Dave, every time we call on you, you have never failed us, and we want you to continue that, because sometimes, things have changed. Remember Coca-Cola song say, I just want to call it to wish you a Merry Christmas. Remember that song?
Yes.
Dave, we would like to have you back because we have a few things we would like to go over with you.
I cannot give you the assurance. I've been in the political life now for over 40 years. Since I was a little boy, I'm in politics. I am here to serve, and that will continue to be so. The office of Member of Parliament will not change me. If we get into government, an office of any other sort will not change me. I am a servant of the people. I was elected to serve. That's the job. The job is not to sit down in a big car and wave. The job is actually to serve people. Politicians are supposed to be servants of the people, and the day we get back to that, the day where you will see the difference between who are really for country and who are really for personal gain.
Dave, we want to thank you, man. Thank you so very kindly for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. All the best.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Be safe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I gotta say, you know, our we had to call Dave we friend now, because you know, Dave. Let me just read some quick. Let me bring in Dr. Faith in here. Dr. Faith, we want to thank you so very kindly for waiting patiently on us. You know, and if it's one thing I had to say, Tobagonians are always on time. If you tell a Tobagonian, no, I'm telling you, I remember when we had what's the other young lady named Diana?
Rayan.
We had Rayan in here. We tell Rayan come 8 o'clock. Rayan come in 7:55, boy. Early o'clock, boy. So they're going to make joke, boy. Hey, Daddy, how you going in Roxborough, boy?
All the Trinidadians need to learn some discipline.
Hey, listen, be careful, please.
I could say what I want. I's a Bajan. All you need to learn some discipline.
You see, when them people start to pell bullets at you, don't
I don't care. Hey, you see this mouth I have? I can handle myself. And I type almost 80 words a minute. I'm ready for them.
Yeah, Ulrich said that. Ulrich said you must get, Ulrich, my name is Dr. Rowley, yeah? You must get Dr. Rowley to come on your program. Yeah? All right.
Yes.
Yeah, Ulrich. All right, Ulrich. I will send the number for you, Ulrich. Dr. Faith, welcome back to In the Village to the Dark Triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. You know,
thank you. It's a pleasure being back, man. A pleasure being back.
And we also and you know the good look at that, right? We had a UNC senator. Now we have a person in PDP, right? Wouldn't it be good if we had a PNM person right after?
Yeah, boy.
Wouldn't that have been good? I mean, this is what it is, man. Come,
balance,
bring your peace, right? And let the people in the diaspora want to hear from different people. They don't just want to hear from one set of people, and that's why we are different. We are cut from a different cloth. So, Dr. Faith, we want to thank you again so very kindly. And the last time you were here, you know, and we have a saying here because we play baseball. You know, you hit it out the park. You know, when it means you hit it out the park. Even if you're playing cricket and you hit a 6, you hit the ball out the park. You know. But thank you so very kindly. Now,
thank you.
Yeah. Diana, you start. Let me let Diana start. Diana, you start.
Dr. Faith, why we invited you back here? The vaccine gate.
Is that what we're calling it?
That's a good one, but
you see what's going? Yeah, vaccine gate. I mean, Dr. Faith, I sat here and I watched them bungle the whole. I said, look at these. Number one, I am over 60, so they would have poor old me stand up out there waiting to get choked in the hot sun. So I say, where is the services for poor me? You know, terrible. They dropped the ball. What do you have to say to that, Dr. Faith?
They not only dropped the ball, they allowed it to roll down the hill and get lost.
Oh God.
It was amazing. And on top of that, they came today really to pull at the heartstrings of Trinbagonians by giving this, this apology and being totally responsible for everything and not really being honest with us, not really saying what truly happened. And, I think they expect, and I think it has worked to some degree because I'm hearing citizens say, oh, they feel so good that they apologized, which is not, I guess, given the history of how Dr. Rowley does normally buff us. We really didn't expect that. So I think that was a psychological shift that they made on us today. But we cannot just say, well, it was just one bad day, because this took way more than one bad day of vaccine gate. It was ridiculous that this is what we had to do. This is what we had to go through. It's sad that we almost created another mass spreader event in the form of people lining up to get vaccinated. That was just crazy. They really just should have recognize, or they should have just said that we are only giving 100 vaccines. So if you know you show up and it have 300 people in front of you, don't waste your time. That information should have been communicated to everyone so that you know what you're dealing with, and not give this impression that you have these thousands and thousands of vaccines and everyone should just show up to get them. I really don't know what happened with that.
You
Well,
know,
go ahead, Alison.
No, Diana, go ahead.
I'm following something here published by the New York Times, tracking corona vaccinations around the world. Trinidad and Tobago has a 0.7% of their population.
And you gotta add another zero. It's 0.007.
Well, me and no maths. Me and no maths person. I got poet.
I'm gonna help you. It's 0.007.
Oh Lord,
they have 10,050 people who have been fully vaccinated. 10,050. That's 0.007 of 1,390,000 people.
And I'm looking at our neighbor half an hour away, Barbados, my other country. 22%, representing 147,000 odds of citizens, right? What do you think Barbados has gotten that Trinidad and Tobago has lost? It's not getting.
I look at Barbados, or you know what Barbados has? Barbados has 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗽, my very favorite leader of all. And I know it's probably because it's a female leader. I'm just throwing that in there. It's probably because it's female leadership, leadership that understands with a caring heart, the same way, you know, the way they say women are and men are not, even though that is not really, really true. That is just how we've been nurtured to be. But Barbados, I think, also recognized very, very early in this that shutting down the entire country was not an option. Barbados recognized that they had to find ways to circumvent or to work with this new normal. So Barbados, a very, very long time ago, decided that they were going to do any and everything to get vaccinated. Barbados did something that I don't necessarily advocate, but I understand why they did it. They actually started using, if I'm not mistaken, vaccines that were not WHO approved.
Correct.
That is a decision they made because they looked at all of their circumstances. And let me just throw in that, you know, when I was on the show last time, I think I was asked that question about whether we should use WHO approved vaccines alone or not. And my answer was yes, as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago. I actually agree with that policy. And I think it's important to say that I agree with that policy because I don't believe that we have the technical capacity in Trinidad and Tobago, at least we're not using them, to really do the critical analysis from all of these different countries to ensure that the vaccines that they are creating and to ensure that the clinical trials and the data that comes out of the clinical trials. I am not sure that we have the people who can do that around the table to make a decision like that for us. And I think that Barbados has those people around the table because they seem to just be leaps and bounds ahead of us for everything. My understanding is that there was a cruise ship in Barbados last week. We still can't even get our citizens home.
Precisely. And what I'm going to piggyback off what you said, having people around you to help you make those critical decisions. People like yourself, Dr. Rowley. Why are you wasting the brain of Dr. Faith here, who's trained in public health? Correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am. And, you know, to help you get this thing, you know, get the economy open. I mean, you know, you have to put aside this here in the United States. Joe Biden, you know, and the Republican Party, they put aside their differences sometimes when it comes to critical issues. You can't go in there with an acrimonious, toxic political hatchet and with a haughty ego. You have to think about your citizens. And this is what I don't like, that quality that I see in Dr. Rowley. I don't like it at all.
He has made it very clear, and I think his party has made it clear that they are going to go this alone. And whoever is a casualty as a result of that, then so be it. Unfortunately, that may mean that, you know, people's grandparents are casualties, unfortunately, or brothers and sisters, because we are now all realizing that people actually die from this disease. I think that has been the biggest shock for Trinbagonians over the last couple of weeks. These numbers that used to just be numbers, these numbers that we were hearing them talk about in the US, these numbers certainly now have names and faces that we know in many of our, in many instances, people who are in your household, people who, you know, part of your life are dying now. And that makes a big difference, which is another reason why I don't understand why they did not expect a whole lot of people to show up for these vaccines. Because I knew that as soon as we started getting higher rates of death in Trinidad and Tobago, many of the people who were vaccine hesitant before would have started saying, hey, let me go get this, because you see, my uncle, my who just died. This ain't making sense. Let me go and see if I can get vaccinated. And that means the number of people who were willing to get vaccinated would have shot up tremendously within a very short period of time. And that we could have anticipated. I don't know why we didn't anticipate that. But
No, Dr. Fit, I saw at the Magdalene in Tobago where I think they had the construction workers being vaccinated, right? And I have to tell you the truth, I thought that was the United States of America because it was very orderly. People were telling them, go here, go there. I said, but wait now, that had to be that can't be small little Tobago, right? So
well, but you know, that has always been my policy, that a lot of the things that are difficult in Trinidad, just because of the size and really the culture of the people, would be a little easier to manage in Tobago, again, because of our size. Physical size of the island, but also population size and the culture of the people. Now, what happened today at Magdalena Grande, that's a good idea. I am not sure that it was the most cost-effective mechanism to do this vaccination of construction and tourism workers. And I'm not sure how, you know, there are questions about that, because I don't know how many of you know where Magdalena Grande is. It's not the most accessible place. And there were other places that were way more accessible that I thought we could have used instead. But I am not sure what was their rationale for using Magdalena versus Shore Park, for example, which is right there that people could get to easily. But yeah, I am really not sure why people outside of Tobagonians don't believe that Tobagonians can do things and do things well.
No, Dr. Faith, somebody's asking you a question. The person said, and it's up on the screen too as well, is what Dr. Faith say, follow the science or not follow the science? To me, you cannot have it both ways. Is she advocating using pre-approved vaccine?
So all of the vaccines that are within use in the world right now, for the most part, well, the ones that we are talking about, have what is known as emergency authorization. All of them. None of them, just because of the sheer time that it takes to get the vaccines to get full approval, is none of them have that full approval either from the FDA or from the European mechanism for approval of medication or anything like that. So I'm not talking about using pre-approved vaccines. No one is talking about using pre-approved vaccines. What I am talking about is the fact that the WHO has a mechanism for reviewing the data that companies present as it relates to vaccines. The WHO goes through that process of looking at the data, looking at their processes, looking at the companies that create the vaccines, the manufacturing plants and so forth. And then the WHO puts a rubber stamp that says, this vaccine in our minds has gone through all of the right steps, is safe, is actually efficient, is actually working. So we say this is a WHO approved vaccine. There are many vaccines in the world that are not WHO approved simply because those companies have not approached the WHO for the WHO to go through that process with them. That does not mean that those vaccines are not safe or those vaccines are not approved in their country or in their region. It's just that they have not gone through that WHO approval process. And that is what I am saying. I would prefer that we use the WHO approved vaccines because we know that they have gone through that process instead of just leaving it up to our own professionals in Trinidad and Tobago to make that decision. That's the difference that I am advocating for.
Dr. Faith, another person says, why take the vaccine if you could still get, this is Ulrich, why take the vaccine if you could still get COVID?
Sure. So let me explain how the vaccines work. The vaccines work by causing your body to develop an immune response before you've gotten the disease. So if you get COVID-19, your body automatically creates antibodies for COVID-19, but that only works and that is only beneficial if you survive the infection. So that's one thing. There are so many people who we are recognizing are not surviving the infection. So instead of putting your body through the process of getting sick, we don't know whether you will survive the infection or not. What the vaccine does is allows your body to create the antibodies that are necessary to fight off COVID. Now, what can happen, and it's a fact, it's not just for COVID, this happens for other diseases too. You may have what is known as breakthrough infection, meaning even though you've been vaccinated, even though you have the antibodies for COVID-19, you still get infected with COVID-19. The issue with this, though, is that what the data is showing is that even for those people who've been vaccinated, who got infected with COVID-19, they have, because the antibodies are already in your body fighting against it, it actually prevents the virus from multiplying the way it would normally would and taking over your system the way it normally takes over your body. So you end up with people who are COVID-19 positive, but in many cases, they do not have symptoms. Or if they have symptoms, it's very, very, very mild. Now, the other thing that's happening is that the vaccine, the antibodies are preventing you from multiplying, preventing the virus from multiplying in your body. When that happens, it means that even if you cough or even if you sneeze, you are not shedding the virus to other people. So in addition to protecting yourself by having no symptoms or having very mild symptoms and certainly not going on to being very sick and dying, you're also preventing yourself from infecting others because the amount of virus, what is known as the viral load in your body is relatively low compared to if you did not have the antibodies working against the virus quickly as soon as it attacked your body.
So Aditya says, what is Sputnik that's been used in Guyana? Is it effective and are there major side effects?
So Sputnik, I think, is the Russian vaccine, and that's just another version. It's like Cuba is also now creating vaccines. Russia has its own vaccines. The Chinese have their own vaccines. The American companies have their vaccines. The European companies have their own vaccines, because the world. Well, because this side of the this side of the world, we are used to American marketing. We are used to the names of Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and so forth. So we are more comfortable with those words because those are the companies we normally get medication from. Sputnik is just the Russian, I think it is, version, or the Russian vaccine. And from the data that I have seen, they all are working basically the same in terms of effectiveness, efficiency. So the fact that they are using a different version or a different country's vaccine is just them choosing, again, to get vaccines from wherever they get them from and not necessarily just waiting for the WHO approve the vaccine. Because I don't think that Sputnik approached the WHO to have their vaccine approved by WHO.
I have a suggestion.
Gary, let me just quickly get through these questions here. Hold a minute there, Gary. Cheryl Solomon says, we have health centers in Mount St. George, Mason Hall, etc. Cheryl, welcome. Why they're not using those places?
I don't know. I am not sure why they are making a decision not to use them. Let me not say I don't know. I know that what they are doing is to try to manage the human resource issues because we have a limited number of nurses and we have not, as far as I am aware, started using like volunteers to do some of the administrative paperwork and that kind of stuff. They have a limited number of human resources that they can use in different places. So I think they're just using a strategy of minimizing the places that provide vaccine because they only have a certain number of nurses and so forth to do it. This is just me from an outside looking in to think about why would they not use any of these other. I think though that because COVID-19 is so it's new, and because we didn't know a lot about it, I think we were limiting which staff give the COVID-19 vaccine. I think once we get a little bit more comfortable with them, we should open it up so that all of the nurses who normally give vaccines, the nurses who normally give when your baby, have to go and get immunization, all of those nurses are competent to do it. So they should be able to do it. And I think when we get more comfortable with the vaccines, they should open it up for all of the health professionals who are able to do it, for them to do it.
So Joanna said all vaccine used in Trinidad and Tobago who approve. I think that's accurate.
Yes, they are.
Only vaccine they are a vaccine that they use. Let me see one other question here, Faith. Dr. Faith, why is there a distinction between who approved and who approved for emergency only? Adita is asking a question. Why is the distinction between? Yeah.
So, one, the WHO is not the agency that is responsible for approving any kind of medication in the world. In the different regions, they have the different agencies. So let's use the United States because that's the one we're most familiar with. The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, that's the agency responsible for approving medication, including vaccines in the United States. What we are seeing now is the difference between emergency use authorization of vaccines and the normal process for vaccines to be approved. Now, let me explain the difference really quickly. For you to have a vaccine or any medication approved, it has to go through several stages. The first stage, in essence, is the company kind of doing the science and creating the medication or creating the vaccines, putting the different chemicals together, that kind of thing. Then it goes into what is known as clinical trials. Phase 1 of the clinical trials is usually done with like 20, 30 people, healthy people, just to make sure really that what you're doing is not killing people. So that even if it's really bad, you only did it to 20 or 30 people. So that usually looks at safety, it looks at starting to look at efficacy, it's starting to look at dosing and that kind of thing. They then go on to phase 2, which is where they start giving the medication or the vaccine to larger numbers. Phase 2 can go up to hundreds of people. Again, looking at safety, looking at what's the right dose, looking at what are some of the side effects so that all of those are documented. Phase 3, though, is where the difference comes in as it relates to emergency use authorization or regular authorization. For regular authorization, let me put it that way first. For regular authorization, phase 3 is usually with thousands. It can go up to thousands of people, volunteers, given the medication, given the vaccine, to make sure that it's safe, again, to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do, and all of that. That process usually lasts for about 4 to 6 months, depending on what it is. It can actually go longer depending on what the medication you're looking at and what is the disease. Depending on how the disease normally progresses, you may need a longer time to look at it to see if it's working. But normally for vaccines, it's between 4 to 6 months that process normally lasts. For regular use, you normally have to get to the end of phase 3, and then the company sends all of their data to the FDA, have the FDA review it and make a decision. And then the FDA says, yes, I've given you approval. You can now go and mass produce your vaccine or medication. When it comes to emergency use authorization, what they do is that during the phase 3 part of it, instead of waiting for the whole period for phase 3 to end before giving approval, once they've started looking at the trends, month 1, month 2, month 3 even, and they realize that everything that we thought was supposed to happen is happening. We're not seeing any adverse events. Everything that happened in phase 1 and phase 2 is really, it's still happening in phase 3. So we're not learning anything that's really new or anything like that. And because there is an emergency that we need to treat with now, the FDA gives emergency use authorization, which then allows the company to then start mass producing the vaccine or the medication before they've gotten to the end of the process. So the mass production starts early. This is why, for example, when you heard in the United States that Pfizer had gotten emergency use authorization, by the following day, Pfizer already had the vaccines to give because it had already started the mass production part of it. So that is what is happening with practically all of the vaccines throughout the world. They're going through this process, not necessarily waiting till the end to then start mass producing, to then start delivering. Because we have a crisis now, because we have a pandemic now that is causing so many people to be sick and to die, the regulatory entities said, okay, we've seen your data so far. Everything seems fine. Vaccines are things that we've been using for decades and decades and decades. So it's not really something new that we are trying to now figure out. You could go ahead, start mass producing. Once we see that your trends are holding, we are giving you authorization. You could start using it sooner than you would normally do for the normal lengthy process. All of these companies are still going through this process though. And the FDA, for example, in the United States is still watching them like a hawk. I've been seeing a couple of people posting the fact that the FDA had a plant in Baltimore, I think it was a Johnson & Johnson, in Baltimore, throw away a couple million doses. That is actually a very, very good sign, people, because it means that the FDA is really watching these entities like a hawk to make sure they are not making any mistakes in the process, because they still have to go through to the end of the normal phase 3, and then phase 4 continues normally. Just in case, anything pops up, it is being recorded, it is being looked at. What you're seeing happening now is that they are adding the different subgroups. So even though the vaccines were approved for adults, you recognize in the US, they then started doing the research on younger people. So you're now seeing that you could get up to age 12 is where they are for some of them now that you could start using the vaccines for, because they started doing research on younger age groups and so on. All of this is part of the process. So when we talk about emergency use authorization, that is what it is, versus the regular authorization that usually takes maybe 2 or 3 months, a little longer than the emergency use authorization process.
Dr. Faith, boy, you're only eating sixes tonight. Another question, Dr. Faith, is the COVID-19 vaccine a yearly vaccine? When will we have to take it every year? We
don't know. And anybody who tells you they know the answer to that doesn't. We honestly don't know. What they would have to do is to keep monitoring the individuals who've gotten vaccinated to see if those people start getting infected and getting very sick again, to see whether COVID-19 behaves more like the flu, because you recognize every year you have to kind of take a booster for the flu because the virus changes so much between one year to the next. So we don't know. We are only going to know that next year, this time, when we really track all of these people who've been vaccinated and see what happens to them. We really don't know right now.
Another person asks, why can people sue if the vaccine don't work? Sue? Who you suing?
Who are you suing?
Who are you suing? Sue? Boy, this
is Trinidad. Listen, this is Trinidad and Tobago, where, honestly, who is suing?
You suing? You can sue? Don't sue. You can't sue nobody, boy. But you ain't see that some one of them vaccine company was dealing with this company. Was it Brazil or one of them countries, boy? And they wanted to get some army base and all kind of thing. Listen, no, forget about suing. Somebody else asked, what efficacy Sinopharm against the other vaccines?
Okay, so Sinopharm has been reported to have a slightly lower efficacy than the AstraZeneca and than the the US ones, the Pfizer and Moderna and so forth. But it's important to know though that when you're talking about efficacy is something that is a very strange thing that we shouldn't try to compare efficacies of vaccines. And let me explain why. Efficacy is what you calculate when you are doing the clinical trials. Now, in clinical trials, for the clinical trials to be done correctly, you have to really control the environment. So you have to ensure that you have all of your confounding variables excluded. The things that could affect your results, but are not part of your study. You have to ensure that the scientific setup of the research study is near perfect. What has happened though, so that is how it is in those settings that they get efficacy. The thing that is different though between the different vaccines is that they were not all tested at the same time in the same populations. So some of the American vaccines, for example, were tested very early in the infection in the United States, where the numbers were relatively low. When you look at some of the other vaccines, Sinopharm, even AstraZeneca, they were tested in other countries, in other regions where the rate of infection was really, really high. So if you're really trying to compare Sinopharm to AstraZeneca to Pfizer, for example, you're not really comparing apples and apples. You're comparing apples and oranges, which is kind of hard to really compare them equitably. What we need to look at is what happens now in real life circumstances. When you use those vaccines, how well do they work in real life circumstances? And that is where the continual data collection is necessary. And that is what is happening now. So efficacy is what you do, what you measure in the clinical trial settings, but effectiveness is what we need to be looking at now to see which of the vaccines really is quote unquote better in real life settings.
Another question, Adita asks, there was a report this week on reinfection in countries that sought herd immunity using Sinopharm, Mongolia, UAE, Seychelles, Diana, I got it right, and understand China. What is the doctor's view on this?
So when you look at the actual data coming out of those countries, what we recognize is that one, many of the infections where there were severe, moderate, severe, or even death, those people were the people who were not vaccinated in those countries. So herd immunity is basically when you have a large enough volume of the people vaccinated that the vaccinated people, in essence, protect the unvaccinated people. That usually works, and that is critical for other diseases. And it is working to some degree with COVID. It's just that this virus is so different and this virus is so strange that once it gets into your system and your body isn't ready to deal with it, we don't know which direction it would go. So for some people, it's fine. For some people, you get really, really sick and you possibly die. We were saying very, very early up that, mainly it's the older people, mainly it's the people with comorbidities. But we are also seeing that there are young people with no comorbidities who are getting very sick and who are dying. So I am not too concerned that in those countries, there are increasing or there are spikes because those countries still have significant proportions of the countries that are not vaccinated. And it is in those communities, the non-vaccinated communities, that the rates are high and that the people who get sick get very sick and possibly die. And that is what is happening in like Seychelles and even China and so forth, when you look at the actual data of who is getting sick and who is getting very sick.
Gary. All right, we're going to get back to Gary. So someone else says there's an advertisement out to hire retired nurses for 3 months, started, I believe, in July. You know anything about that?
Yes, they've been trying to hire. They've been trying to hire people. They have hired people on short-term employment without giving them any real benefits and so forth. And there are all kind of human rights issues and labor issues that are thing. I think what we need to do is to not just look at hiring people. We need to start having way more volunteers to be a part of this process, because you don't necessarily need a nurse to call someone and tell them that they have an appointment. There are certain parts of it where you don't need somebody who is a medically trained person to do that, and then we can reserve the medically trained people for the activities that require those kinds of skills. So I think we're just not using our human resource the way we should, and we are not taking advantage of the people who are out there who want to be volunteers. As a matter of fact, I saw a post today from somebody in Trinidad who was saying they volunteered to work with the ministry or to work with NRHA. They went through the training, and then when they contacted them, they basically told them that the minister just decided that they are no longer using volunteers. That I don't understand why you would, why would you do that in a time like now?
But Dr. Fit, how come you don't understand that? You see how they just throw the alphabet out of the they put the alphabet in the soup and they try to take it out? You know, it's like squeezing toothpaste out of the tube and trying to put it back in.
And try
You know,
to put it back in.
yeah, I mean, when the toothpaste out of the tube, you can't put it back in. Ulrich says, I know someone. Hey guys, if you want to jump in, you can jump in. I'm just reading these questions for these people.
Anselm,
Because
you had a group of questions for her.
Yeah. I'm gonna get to that. Don't worry. I just want to get to some of the people in the chat here questions. Ulrich says, I know someone who took the vaccine and died after. Why can the family sue? Ulrich, forget about that. You know, they can't sue. They just can't sue.
Well, let me push back on that though. I
Okay.
do think that there is some benefit to being able to sue, because unfortunately in Trinidad and Tobago, because we don't have a litigious culture, I think our health professionals and our health institutions get away with a lot of crap because they know that they are not going to get sued, or they know that even if they get sued, it's not going to go anywhere. So I don't believe that we should take that completely off of the table. In a situation like this, though, a person dying right after they've gotten a vaccine is not necessarily they died because of the vaccine linear causation kind of thing. I don't know that they know why the person died. The person could have died because they were very sick anyway and were going to die that day anyway. It's just coincidentally they got vaccinated just before. So it's important to really do the assessment, do the investigation, and understand what is going on instead of just throwing it out the window as, you know, that is not an option. I think we still need to know the answer to that question.
So someone says, Nikisha says, I'm trying to get to the USA to get vaccinated and see my doctors and get back to Trinidad. Well, Nikisha, you go get exemption, man. Exemption flying like peas, exemption flying like Carl in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, you don't worry yourself.
Well, you know, the thing about that, sadly, is that unless you're a citizen or a permanent resident, you have to have a return flight to leave the country. And the only way you're going to get the return flight is if you have the exemption, basically. So that is the part that is tying up a lot of people who want to leave and who are willing to leave. They actually can't because of how CAL does its system, unfortunately. But let's hope that, you know, within the next couple of weeks that resolves itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'd be happy when they get rid of that exemption system anyway. Ulrich says, I'm seeing doctors coming out and saying people who took the vaccine will die after 2 years.
Yeah, I saw that too. And, you know, it's like also saying that putting the vaccine is a chip in you, or putting the vaccine, you know, magnetic. You know, there are people just saying things. There are people who really are just saying things. I have actually been using a mechanism to determine what makes sense or what doesn't. Anybody who tells me, who tries to tell me those things, you first have to explain to me how vaccines work and how our immune system works. And if you cannot tell me how those two things work, then you really are not in a position to tell me about what are the goods or bad of a vaccine, because you obviously you don't understand it well enough to be able to convince me that what you're saying is correct.
Right. Somebody said Dr. Fit explains it so well. I tell you, Dr. Fit is actually brilliant. You know, I don't know why the Ministry of Health don't get Dr. Fit in order to help Terrence who
and you wonder why nobody's coming on the show.
That's pretty funny. Adita says, I believe you review and sign a document accepting the risk before taking the vaccine, which indemnifies the government from any legal suit. Not sure if that is being done at home.
Okay, I know that actually isn't, because when I took the vaccine, I didn't have to sign anything saying that I am removing them from being.
Only when you do the yearly flu shot, they do that. I didn't do that for the COVID. No.
Gary, did you have a question? Tiba?
No, Tommy.
Tommy, you have a question?
No, everybody go on, boy.
No, all right. So listen to this. We shouldn't be repeating stories people just say here. You have you have not proof like what Ulrich said. Another person said the Cuban vaccine seemed to be excellent and it's in phase 3. What is holding this vaccine from getting the emergency approval? Trinidad has a long history of medical cooperation with Cuba, and thus there's reasoning why this is not being leveraged at this time. And thus, is there a reason why this is not being leveraged at this time?
So let's go back to the process of getting emergency approval. You're talking about Cuba. One, who is going to give Cuba emergency approval? Cuba is not going to get it from the FDA. It's not going to get it from European Union. They're not going to get it from any of the other regions. Cuba
Correct.
has to go through their own internal process for getting their vaccine approved. For the vaccine, for the Cuban vaccine to be approved by WHO, my understanding from reading the WHO documents and listening to a couple of their representatives is that the WHO does not reach out to any company asking them to apply. The company has to reach out to WHO. So if Cuba does not reach out to WHO, then it will not be on the WHO list. And then you have to go back to what is the relationship with Cuba and all of these other countries.
But Dr. Faith, at the height of the pandemic, Italy was in shambles, and who they reached out to for doctors?
Oh yeah, Cuba has been at the forefront of everything. I am excited about the Cuban vaccine, and it may actually be one of the countries where I say, okay, remember that policy I had about only using WHO vaccines? We may need to rethink that as it relates to Cuba, because we know what normally comes out of Cuba as it relates to excellence in medicine, simply because they've been forced to do it for themselves. They've been, necessity is the mother of invention, because the rest of the world has cut them off. They've been forced to survive on their own. So it is, we await. We just have to look at the data and make sure that it says what we think it should say, and we'll go from there.
Last question, Dr. Faith, in the group. Do autopsy on COVID-19 deceased people, how do they know for sure the person died from COVID-19 without an autopsy?
Okay, so the thing in Trinidad and Tobago is that we don't usually do autopsies for most deaths. And I think that is the part that most citizens don't recognize. We only do autopsy if a person dies and we are not sure why. So if you just meet somebody and in the middle of, you meet them home, drop down dead kind of thing, and you don't know why, then you do an autopsy. Or if there's a we think that there's a criminal element that may have caused their death, then we do an autopsy. Normally, whenever the doctor writes died because of whatever, that is usually based on history, based on the clinical history of the person. So that is basically what they do with COVID as well. So what they're doing with COVID is actually what they've been doing for all of the other diseases that people have been dying from, and the doctor has been writing that this is the cause of death. So this is actually not new. It's just that most people didn't know this.
Hey, Dr. Faith, I tell you, we have whenever you come into the village, Dr. Faith, it's like people just come to get educated. I mean, the stuff that you give, it's just so splendiferous, marvelous, fantabulous. There is so many questions. So what we're gonna do, let me ask another question here, Dr. Faith. I hope you don't mind, because what a lot of people are saying, Dr. Faith, is that, and let me say what somebody says. Dr. Faith is an educator to us. She's such a humble person. She doesn't have to make effort to answer any question put to her, and takes her time and explain everything to us. Thank you, Dr. Faith. And listen, we all, and Dr. Faith is funny. You ain't mentioned PDP. Yes, when you go mention PDP? when you go mention PDP? You come into the race and you ain't said nothing about PDP yet. Come on, man, Dr. Faith.
Answer when you're approaching the top of the hour.
I know. Dr. Faith, hold it like this. Stay like this. Think and stay. Dr. Faith, that little fella, and some of that troublemaker,
Oh, boy.
Yeah, of course, guys, it's in the village and the Dark Triplet on WZYE 95.9 FM. We have with us, Dr. Faith B. Israel. She's an assemblyman in the Tobago House of Assembly. She has willingly joined us for the second time, and she's imparting information, regarding COVID-19, and she's putting some valuable information. And I want to tell people, let me read this other quote here quick before we go for the break. Somebody says this. Okay, Oh, hold up. It gone, where it gone, boy? Woo, them quoting them coming fast and vicious, boy. Let me bring it down here. Okay, Cheryl Solomon says 95.9. We in Tobago need you to advocate for us to our our lame, weak healthcare for people in charge of our healthcare needs on the island. Please, please, please. Cheryl, let's
No
go for a
comment.
quick break, folks, and we'll be right back after this quick break. All right, let's bring who we gonna bring in here? Let's bring in Preacher in here, man. Preacher, you tell them. You know, we had all kind of woo boy. Mm.
95.9 FM, Maplewood, New Jersey, broadcasting from Essex County.
I'll cut that short, Dr. Fade, because there is so much going on here. Of course, folks, it's in the village with the dark triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. We have with us Dr. Faith B. Israel, assemblyman in Tobago, and she has willingly joined us, and we are so happy to have her in the village. Let me go back quickly to some of the questions. Lana says, thank you, Dr. Faith. Stay safe. Dwayne Twain Nurse says, my area rep. You all have a fantabulous rep. Adita says, thank you, doctor. Adita also says, yes, I know a doctor who prescribed this to his 90-year-old grandmother successfully. Somebody had a question here about ivermectin. We have a lot of Cuban health workers in Trinidad. Hold on, and somebody had a question here. Okay, Salim Mohammed says, Salim, welcome. I think Salim is the first time. Several countries have been using ivermectin despite the decree of the WHO, and they have seen quick success in reducing deaths and hospitalizations. Doctors from several countries have contributed to a mountain of data attesting to its efficacy in prevention and treatment, yet the WHO refuses to greenlight ivermectin, citing more studies needed. How is a drug that's in 40 years and 3.7 billion doses with just 25 deaths is not approved, yet vaccine that in mere months that have racked, and he goes on. You know, what do you say about that?
Right. So this thing about treatment for COVID-19 is that what they've been doing is really treating the symptoms, and because you know, if COVID-19 does something to your heart, they treat the heart issue. To your lung, it treats the lung issue, and so forth. That drug, if I'm not mistaken, it has been used all over the world, but not for COVID-19. And what the WHO is really saying is that it does not give emergency approval. Remember, the WHO isn't a regulatory organization. So it will have to be that the FDA in the United States, the EMA in the UK, and the different entities would have to be the entities that provide that says, yes, we give use for this drug to be used. The WHO can't make that decision on their own. That is not part of their role. That's not part of their function. So it is really, the question should really be, why aren't the FDA and other regulatory agencies in the various countries or regions doing it? And honestly, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure why they're not doing it.
Dr. Faith, Gregory asks, I want to know the reason for taking the vaccine.
Okay, so when our bodies come into contact with a foreign entity, our body has to go through a very lengthy process of one, recognizing that the foreign entity is there, identifying what the foreign entity is, then making a response to that foreign entity. That is a normal process that happens when our bodies come into contact with a virus, a bacteria, or anything else. What the vaccines do is remove a couple of those steps. So the vaccines are specific to a specific disease or a specific virus, and it actually tells your body, this is what you need to make an antibody against. This is what you need to protect against. And it is doing that to allow your body the time to develop those antibodies, the time to develop that response before you've come into contact with that actual disease. It means that by the time you've come into contact with the disease, your body already has mounted a defense against it. So that is why we take vaccines. It's really to allow your body the time to mount the response against the disease before you've come into contact with it, so that when you do, you already have the army waiting and ready to attack, to protect you. And that is not just for COVID-19, that's for yellow fever, that's for measles, that's for, all of the other things that we get vaccinated for as babies, for example. That is why we do it. Polio, or, all of these diseases that we don't even know about anymore, we don't really hear about, because we've all been vaccinated against them, and they've basically been wiped out because we've been vaccinated against them.
Dr. Faith, somebody asked, is it not true that the vaccine suppresses the immune system from fighting other diseases?
No, it doesn't. The vaccine causes your immune system to activate the process as it relates to this specific disease. The immune system is not a system where if one is working, everything else shuts down. So if you are healthy normally and so forth, and your immune system is working against to create a response against one disease, that doesn't mean it's not doing what it normally does. So no, that's not true.
All right. Ulrich, you just ask some type of questions, eh, boy? I know Ulrich. Yeah, you just ask them kind of UNC questions. Oh, Dwayne Nurse says, just to be sure, Dr. Faith, are companies using metagenomics principles to create the vaccine?
I have no idea what metagenomics. I don't know. I don't know what that word means. I have no idea what that word means. No, so this is me just kind of pulling out basic, looking for roots, looking for if we are talking about genetic knowledge, yes, we are using genetic knowledge to create the vaccine, because one of the ways we know what is the spike protein, and the spike protein is a specific part of the vaccine, part of the virus that the vaccines are attacking. It's because we do know the genetic makeup, because remember, it's the genes come together to basically make amino acids that make proteins. So if we know what the proteins are, if we know what the genetic makeup is, we then know what the proteins are when you look at the buildup of the entity. So we are using that data to create a vaccine that specifically looks for that particular data. Now, I don't know if that is what that word means.
But I says, he say by the way, look your boy, so you.
Yeah, I know Dwayne very well. Yeah. And Dwayne is my boy.
Dwayne, I like that. Dwayne. Look. Dr. Faith, just it's your question out the park, for 10, not even 6. Somebody else asked, in today's press conference, the Prime Minister indicated there is sufficient vaccine at this time, and it is hoped that in the next week or so, 250,000 should arrive. What would you suggest as the best use of current available vaccine in hand, and what form should the rollout take when vaccines are available in large quantities?
So I don't know that.
Not the form that happened recently.
Well, one, I don't know that the Prime Minister said that we have sufficient vaccines, because we don't have sufficient vaccines. That's what he kept saying. We don't have enough vaccines. And we certainly don't have enough vaccines for the groups of people who are classified as most at risk. Who are they? People who are over the age of 60. If you realize today, though, they've chucked that up to 65. Again, they're trying to reduce the number because we just don't have enough vaccines. People who are over the age of 60, people who have comorbidities. And if you look at Trinidad and Tobago, listen, everybody, all we know, at least 2-3 people in my family with comorbidities, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, that kind of thing. And people who are frontline workers. doctors, nurses, police officers, that kind of thing. So those are the groups of people who are at highest risk for contracting COVID-19. And those are the groups of people who are priority. When you look at those numbers compared to the numbers of vaccines that we have, we really don't have enough. We don't have enough. That is why on Wednesday, we saw all of these old people stand up in the sun waiting to get vaccinated because we don't have enough. When we do have enough, what should we do? Several things. We should expand so the same way you can go to any health center and get a vaccine, antenatal clinic, get a vaccine for your baby, we should be able to go to any health center and get vaccinated throughout Trinidad and Tobago. It should just be part of routine health care provision. But we should also do other things. One, actually go to people's workplaces. Even though we have a relative lockdown, even though we have, so many people in certain sectors not at work, we still have a large chunk of government workers at work. And that is actually a very good catchment area to find people who are already sitting there. They're probably not doing a lot of stuff anyway. So you are there getting at them, talking to them, answering the questions, and vaccinating them. So showing up at a different building with a couple of vials every day is actually a very good way of getting a large proportion of the population vaccinated. And having something like what we saw in the US, what we've seen in Barbados, I think Guyana also did it, where they have drive-in vaccination. What drive-in vaccination does, it actually forces you to be separate because you're in your car and there's an expectation that if you are in your car with your family, the people who you're already exposed to at home anyway. So it's not like it's bringing different groups of people who normally don't interact together. And you are forced to stay at least a car length away. So there is no crowding, there is no mass gathering happening. And having that system where you're actually vaccinated in your car and you just go and park up a little bit, make sure that the 30-minute observation time goes by, that is actually a decent way to get it done quickly and to minimize having the crowding and gathering that normally happens. What they've done in the US and in other countries is actually to use the soldiers to help with the crowd management, to help telling people, well, this car, you go in that lane, and that kind of thing. They've also been using the medical professionals who are in these other protective services. So the EMTs and so forth who are working with fire services, the doctors who are part of our armed forces, soldiers, and so on, they also employ those groups of people to come together to be a part of the human resource, because we can't just expect the medical professionals to do it alone. And of course, pulling a lot of volunteers. I was able a couple of weeks ago, within less than 12 hours, to identify at least 15, 20 people who were, overnight were willing to be volunteered, to be contact tracers, to be people who calling people on the phone and that kind of thing. We need to use the people who are home, and a lot of them not really doing anything right now anyway because of the lockdown. So it's really using the human resource and using it well, managing it well, is what we would need to do if and when we finally get a lot of vaccines.
Dr. Faith, I want to ask, go ahead, Diana. I have a question.
And there you have it, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley and Dr. Crying Sing. You all heard it? Y'all heard it right there, right? Why is she not on your team, Dr. Rowley? Go ahead, answer.
Diana boy, like you just went into my brain too, and pick out a certain part in my brain. Dr. Faith, have anyone approach you in Tobago? I want to say Tobago because you are in Tobago. I've been want to approach you in Tobago and say, Dr. Faith, from a bipartisan perspective, it's 6-6 anyway, right? It's a 6-6 tie, right? So, with all this knowledge you have anyone in Tobago from the other side have approached you or your leader or whoever it is and say, listen, we have Dr. Faith who has a wealth of knowledge that can make an impact on the way we do things here in Tobago with respect to COVID-19 since Easter come and, what happened after Easter. So have everyone approached you and asked for your assistance?
No, the assistance was offered multiple times. No one at a upper level has.
I don't need to cut you off. Did you send an email and they didn't get it, or you send a WhatsApp and they didn't get it, or you send a text. Because you know sometimes things just get hung up in cyberspace.
True, true, true. Well, so this is what happened very early in the pandemic. Assemblyman Farley, who is my colleague, deputy political leader, our chief sec candidate for THE, very, very early in the pandemic, he actually said, all a look fate, tech fate kind of story. And members of the media actually asked them maybe the week after Assemblyman Farley said this, oh, what are you guys going to do? And their response was, well, we have everything under control, we're fine, so forth. So it's not like they don't know. It's not like there was a lost email. It was said very publicly. They were asked about it very publicly, and they answered very publicly. And unfortunately, when there have been circumstances that it's kind of annoying for me to even talk about, but there are circumstances when individuals who are lower tiered level professionals reach out for help from me, and they've gotten help. They've actually been threatened, and they've been chastised, and they've been, so it is
Four
what it is,
Ds,
I
Dr.
guess.
Faith. We had the 4 Ds. They tried to implement the 4 Ds. But quickly, Dr. Faith, because Dr. Faith got to go. She's been here. We appreciate her coming back, and we want to keep her coming back. Kester asks, can you give blood after taking the vaccine?
Yes, you could give blood unless
Why you can't give blood unless there's a reason why you can't like if your blood count is low or something like that. There's no other reason for you not to give blood.
Salim asks, the WHO in November changed the definition of herd immunity to no longer. Let me put that up on the screen so you can read it too as well, Dr. Faith. The WHO in November changed the definition of herd immunity to no longer include immunity gained through exposure. NOQ, according to them, it can only be attained via vaccination. So how did humanity survive before vaccine? Doesn't this action favor vaccine manufacturers?
Okay, so that I think that was changed because we have a different understanding about the level of immunity you gain after you've gotten natural immunity versus immunity from the vaccine. We recognize that different people have different levels of immunity that they've gotten naturally, and the part of the virus that the body sees and makes antibodies against actually is different and changes for different people. So when we talk about being vaccinated, or when we talk about having antibodies against the spike proteins, that is not what happens for everybody who's got natural immunity. So that's why it's important to understand that. That's why it's important to understand that even though you've gotten some level of immunity, because you got it naturally, because it was not done, it may not have been done specifically against the spike protein, you may not have the level of protection that somebody who has the vaccine and has it specifically for the spike protein got. So that there's like a slight difference there that needs to be taken into account. Now, I don't know if that is why WHO changed their definition, but that, that's my understanding of what happens with natural immunity versus vaccine-induced immunity.
Alec, already come back. It's already come back again. How come all of a sudden we have these large spikes at a time when the vaccines are available, and there was no spike when there was no vaccine? I don't know.
Well, the difference is what were we testing for before, or who were we testing before? I personally believe that we actually had spikes before now, but because we were not testing people, we didn't know that we had spikes before now. Remember before, for many months, the only people who they would even test would be people who are primary contacts of somebody and people with symptoms. For a very long time, they refused to test you, even if you were a primary contact, but you didn't have symptoms. And we now know, well, I knew way back then, the rest of the world knew, but they now know that you could be asymptomatic and spread it. And so that's why we needed to test more people. So I think what we are seeing is really the coincidence between increased testing and not really a coincidence between vaccines coming. That is where the coincidence, that is where the causation is happening. We're just testing more people now compared to before.
You know, Dr. Faith, I gotta say this, you know, it is sad, boy. It is sad when the wealth of knowledge that you are bringing and the questions that these people in the chat are asking, and I'm at a loss for words to understand why you are not in front of the public daily. Forget about them press conference they having, and putting up chat and chat and chat and chat. I'm tired seeing them chat and them and play half of them wrong anyway. All right, don't put only put up chat. Aye, give me that chat over there. Put up the no, go back to that one. You put the one here, but no chat. Forget about all them chat, and every time is a chat. Oh, only got vaccine chat then, man. Oh God, I get vexed. Anyhow, let me do it. See that? Bring that drink up there for me, please. Bring that drink. Bring that drink. Let me go back to the questions. Adita asks, what is the danger in outdoor exercise if we limit it to 2 persons per household at a time, limit the radius to go home, and even put a max time, example, once a day for an hour? It is open versus circulated air and helps with mental and physical health.
Yeah, and the data that we're getting is that being outside is actually safer because you're causing the air is circulated more, and that basically the air is circulating more, so you're not trapped in a room that is not well ventilated, because being trapped in a room that is not well ventilated is what puts you more at risk. So I think that we should be outside. That's actually the better policy. What I think, though, is that we are afraid of Trinbagonians who normally don't do things in just groups of 2. And when we go outside, for example, a river bath becomes a river lime with 20 different people cooking duck and drinking and having a good old time. That usually is what happens to us. You know? So I think that is what they are afraid of would happen if you don't open it back up. But the data is showing that it's very unlikely that you would infect somebody else if you are outside in an open space. Again, compared to being inside in a not well ventilated space. That is what the data is showing.
So, Dr. Faith, we're going to take the last 3 questions that we have in here in the chat, but because we have Dr. Faith for a long time and we appreciate her coming in, somebody says, is Dr. Faith a member employee of the Tobago Health System?
I am not a member of the Tobago Health System anymore. When I just came back to Tobago, I was actually an advisor to one of the secretaries back then. Now I am
Wait, you was an advisor? You was an advisor to them?
Yeah, this was way back when. This was quite in, way back when. This was 2707. Yeah, way back when.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah, and then they realized that I did not necessarily hold the same political persuasion, so that kind of caused a lot of stuff to change.
Okay.
Yeah.
My daughter got COVID-19 and was tested, verified that she had developed the antibodies. Is it necessary for her to still be vaccinated?
Yes.
So that is dependent on several things. If you could continue testing for antibodies to see where the antibody level is and to see if it's dwindling, then definitely if it begins to dwindle, you should still get vaccinated. That also is influenced by how many vaccines you have where you are. If you have vaccines, then certainly go get the vaccine. If you don't have enough vaccines, then she already has some antibodies. It's better to give those vaccines to somebody who doesn't have any antibodies at all and protect them. So both entities would be protected. The critical part, though, is that we don't give vaccines to individuals who are symptomatic, meaning individuals who are COVID positive and have symptoms, because one of the things that the vaccines do is actually create the symptoms in your body. That's kind of how you know the vaccines are working. So you start getting the headache and the body pain and that kind of thing. And if you are already COVID-19 and we're not quite sure how you would We are not quite sure how your body would respond. We are not quite sure whether you would have mild versus severe symptoms. Then it is not wise to give you a vaccine that may then increase the number of symptoms that you have, since we don't know where you are going to go. So if this person has had COVID-19 and is over the infection, measure the antibodies if you have the capacity to do that, and then determine whether they need to be vaccinated again. But they probably should get vaccinated a little later down. It just doesn't have to be right now.
Somebody asked, in Israel, rates of myocarditis in young vaccinated adults have increased by 25 times the norm. This has been observed in Canada and Germany as well. Please comment.
So I don't know that is actually true. That is something that I would have to go and look at to see what is happening there, to see if that data is actually correct. I don't know. I don't know about that.
Okay. And you see, Dr. Faith, that's what we like about you, you know, and that's what we want people when they come into the village, you know, because, you know, sometimes politicians make stuff up, you know, to make them look like, you know, they were like, yeah, ask them a big question and they can't say it, so they just make it up, you know. I mean, what, 180 vaccine, and if they get half of that is 120,000, something like that. I mean, I don't remember.
Half of 180 is 140.
Oh yeah. Well, you see, you know, what is it?
Yeah, Anselm, you got to go and give him some extra math tutorial lessons.
But not only that, I'll get him some global business lessons too as well. And not only that, but principles of business management too. You know,
we may have to bring Dr. Faith back another day to answer those critical questions. We had
yeah.
Time,
you know, Dr. Faith, I think what we're gonna do. We have had you for so long, and we appreciate you, and we don't want to, you know, be ungrateful with your time. It's kind of important that when we have people like you come in here, we appreciate you so much. But Dr. Faith, let me put something up here before you go. I mean, Dr. Faith, we actually cherish you so much, that and Dr. Faith mightn't say this, but we can say this. We can say this. You know, it's all right. We can let me just move that comment there, Dr. Faith. Everybody can see it. Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Faith, we in here appreciate you and what you do to come in here and spend so much time with us. So Dr. Faith is doing a drive, and she's asking for donation. Please donate. There's a GoFundMe page. She's helping GoFundMe. And what we're going to do, we're going to post it on our page as well on WZYE.com. It's also going to be on YouTube. I'm going to put it on my page as well, just as how I put the other young lady thing on my page. And Dr. Faith, the reason why we do this is because you didn't know. No, listen to this. Tell people, nobody told you we were going to do this, right?
No.
Right, nobody didn't say, Dr. Faith didn't come to, you know, because people that say, oh God, Dr. Faith come one day because she wanted to put up that thing for she. No, we decided on our own. Dr. Faith took her time to come in here. So this is something that we can do for her. And guys, you'll see what Dr. Faith is doing. You see the kind of knowledge she brings to the table, right? So this is what she's doing. I want, as a matter of fact, I'm actually going to support this, Dr. Faith, because I think that's important. Right, I want other people to support
me too,
because she's doing a fantabulous job, and we need to support people like this, Dr. Faith, who is giving her time. I mean, Dr. Faith, there were so many questions. This is when you come on, it's like the whole thing. Anyway, but Dr. Faith, we appreciate you so much, and please, people, go on our Facebook page, WZYE FM, right? Look on our YouTube page, WZYE TV. We're gonna put it up there, you know, because Dr. Faith is doing a fantabulous job, and I know that this is a good course here. And as he says, to help pay for community projects, you can also cash up. It's easy there, you know, Dr. Faith B, you know, $ Dr. Faith B. It's pretty easy, you know, and you know we appreciate it. So people who appreciate us, we show our appreciation to them. You know, and Dr. Faith didn't know we was going to do this, but we had to do this for her for setting our time. So, Dr. Faith, any closing words?
Just thank you so much for putting that up because it is important for us to keep doing what we're doing in the communities. It's a pleasure being here. I enjoy actually coming. I enjoy answering questions. And it's just a matter of getting the word out there because this is a pandemic that I'm hoping we all get through and we all get through successfully. So I am willing to do my part, however little it might be, to ensure that we all get through this and get through it successfully. Thanks for having me.
And Dr. Fit, it's important that what we go do, I'm gonna go and do this. Make this into a little piece for you, just with you right there and that there, so then you can share, with all your, the people and people on social media, so they can see, the good work that you're doing, not just, from a health perspective, from also underground, helping people in the community as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Peg.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you. So, folks, as we leave Dr. Faith, we want to thank you so much. Where did I put that? Let me get rid of that there. All right. You see, folks, that's what we're about here in the village. That's what we're about. We are about educating the masses. That's what we're about. Truthfully. Yeah. Let me get out of here. Hold on there. Let me put it on.
Yeah. We're talking about Gary gone.
I know Gary.
I'm here.
Okay, let me bring Tommy in. What we about in the village is educating the masses. Now, and I want people to know this, right? And this applies for all of us. There are going to be times when you all disagree with us. Don't let our disagreement, stop you from being part of us. Right? Think about more what we have in common as opposed to what we... Somebody saying something? Think more about what we have in common as opposed to what we don't have in common. We can all agree to disagree. Don't let our disagreements or our political affiliation get the best of us. Right? Let them people say what kind of thing about me. It's all right. I could deal with that. I use 𝗪𝗪𝗬𝗘𝗧𝗦 I grew up in, my bad broad. Right? But we are going to call it like we're going to call a spade, and, let the chips fall where they may.
So you see how much damages your PNM party has caused in the country, especially this one, right? No collaboration with nobody. They're not interested in anybody's opinion, no matter how brilliant you are and how much resources you can bring to the table. It's they run the show. It's their way or the highway. And this is the attitude that's caused a catastrophic situation in Trinidad. And we're going more downhill and downhill by the day. It's more chaos and upon chaos. So where do we draw the line?
And let me say something to all those in the chat who your questions may not have been answered, but we didn't want to take advantage of Dr. Faith. She has been with us for so long tonight, right? We only were supposed to have her for like, Diana, how long were we supposed to have her?
I don't know, maybe an hour.
Maybe an hour, right? And she was here for over an hour and a half. So we wanted to respect her time as well, and show her that, listen, we really do appreciate when people come into the village. And we want to thank Dave Tanko too as well, Dave, for coming into the village, and and listen.
It was a resourceful evening, very resourceful.
Yeah, I mean, the evening was fantabulous, man. We went straight from UNC straight into the PDP. Would that be nice if we go UNC, PDP, PNM?
I would like to have like how we have a debate night. Everybody, all parties in there. We'll have to set something like that up eventually when we get to that stage. But looking at the intelligence of the young lady, right? And seeing how resourceful she can be, making the lives of our people much better. And I feel that Tobago has been really suppressed by this PNM regime for too long. We need to put an end to that. We need to put an end to that and give them that liberation to do what's right for their people over there.
Well, Gary, I'm gonna tell you something. You see, we have our platform is for the betterment of the government and the betterment of the people in Trinidad and Tobago. That's what our platform is about, right? Our platform is not because I'm a PNM, I go be pro PNM, because another person may have supported the UNC, they're going to be pro-UNC, right? We ask questions, and if you don't want to answer the question, you don't answer it, but we're going to ask the questions. We have to ask the questions.
Yeah, but what I'm looking at from around everybody that's outside the PNM, long as it's you're not part of their group, your idea is not welcome. And especially with Dr. Rowley administration and Yal Singh and them.
It's part of the go along, get along PNM gang. You have to say it correct. It's part of the go along, get along PNM gang. If you're not part of that. But I outside now, I outside the gang now.
I'll leave that for you.
All right. I agree with that.
Yeah, you deal with that. But what I'm saying to you is we have seen so much evidence of oppression and suppression for support for egos. You know, they are not interested. They don't care who dies. According, she said it herself. Who dead. There is their way. You know, I mean, they show no regards for anybody who's dying outside the country. Inside the country, you know, they have, you know, funded their friends and association.
But Gary, it seemed like if your boy took this back today. Let me move that comment from there. It seemed like if they talked about the 800,000 one-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine scheduled and anticipated to arrive in August. But guess what? There's work going on right now led by the Prime Minister and team to seek the advanced arrival of these doses. It appears they took that back today. I don't know. It appears.
I mean, listen, they can't even get the lies straight. They can't even get the lies straight. I mean, but I think that I strongly think that they could have gotten more of that Indian vaccine, but I think there was an objective with China, and the Indian vaccine would have overturned the China's agenda. This is what I see in here now. You know, that's why they didn't act on getting that Indian vaccine, because they did not exploit, according to what I see Dr. Munilaro was saying, their political and diplomatic capital, because we seem to be a very powerful little island. I mean, the island has more collateral to his disposal than we have realized. Most Trinidadians are. You know, that we have so much collateral available to our disposal that we have not really utilized it. And these are the things that I'm picking up on. You know, and it's very concerning. And we should be putting country and people first, and not party and politics. And they keep riding that same horse. The PNM continues on its own agenda. They flip around things to suit their fancy, no matter what chaos takes place in the country.
And Gary, look at this, right? This is something here, Dr. Faith
right, so here we have the vaccination process. Persons are screened by the gate by the sentry. Then if allowed to come in, they will proceed along this line to line up to approach the tent for their vaccine. Right, so once they get in line, they will be directed to a tent. Where they will then receive their vaccine. So we have here the vaccination process. We have Dr. Dowlat, who's actually drawing the vaccine from the vial, preparing it to be injected. Corporal Jones is doing the administration work, writing up the forms and the cards. Right? And we have vaccine is administered. Patient is counseled about the waiting time, which is 20 minutes, and then they proceed to the waiting area.
Better the army run the Ministry of Health now, yes. And lastly, before we go,
it was sad. I pulled aside and I literally, a tear came to my eye. It did. And I wept. I really wept. In immediately reviewing what has happened this morning.
Oh boy.
No, answer one of the suggestions I had made, and I wanted to say to Dr. Vitt. Anyway, the same way that we utilize the schools as voting polling station for election, I think we can utilize the school system for a vaccination station, and we can avoid the crowds at the health centers, which will cause more chaos for those who are really seeking medical attention. So we should kind of separate things in the deployment of it.
Mm-hmm. And I will look. I said the people already locked in their house. Go and juke them in their arm in their house and call it a day. You have no kind of spread.
Well, we might not have the staffing to do that, you know. So also,
but wait, you may not have the staffing, but you have people locked down home and doing nothing.
Well, exactly. She made the point, and I made the point to the Ministry of Health today. Anyway, the tent was one tragedy, but remember we have a lot of elderly people that don't drive and stuff like that. So what I'm saying
precisely.
So if you get them transported to what I'm suggesting is we decentralize things. Instead of packing up people by the health center that's already creating a crowd where people are seeking medical attention, that we separate the vaccination process and utilize the school system that's not in use anyway, like how we use it as a polling station, and you get the people transported there, get their vaccine, and leave. So when the vaccine becomes where we have sufficient to do that, you know, that would be the best case scenario than crowding up the health centers that are already overburdened.
But Gary, we all from Trinidad. They have and Tobago. You have schools that are in neighborhoods and things. You can have certain, you know, use the schools and they come to certain schools. They're already locked down or on the lockdown home already. Instead of all running to the health system and stuff, you know, you capture them in their own community, so you avoid them leaving the community and going. I mean, and you use the army, you use, you know, all these personnel and things to control the crowd. Oh my God, who's these people are running the place, Anselm? Where they come from, boy?
No, like she said, and I've said it before, we have a lot of people sitting around not doing anything. We have a lot of university students. We have a lot of medical students that we can utilize. But the government is not engaging, and they're not providing any kind of a leadership in this aspect. So they don't even know how to utilize the human resources at their disposal. This is causing the chaos. We have a lot of resources at our disposal that we can utilize. The same CPAP people that they put out at work, we could use them to organize the chairs and the setting up of things and cleaning the area for that, you know, I mean, supplying drinks and stuff.
But Gary, as you say that, let me just play this one real quick here. Look.
Good morning, sir. Can you tell us what is happening here this morning?
Morning. So we realized that there was a shortage of sleeping accommodations. There's no tents. A lot of the old folks come out this morning. We did this in Gaspereau. We're doing a Marbella just now. What we're doing is we're just trying to make sure that the older folks and them have sleeping accommodations. And also if the rain falls, we don't want them getting wet in the rain. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to get the public to assist a little bit in this. We have we need tents, we need chairs, we need water, we need sanitizers.
What's your name, sir?
I'm Shane from Boys Construction Services.
Okay, so you all are sponsoring these chairs this morning?
Basically, yeah, I took it upon myself. Careful. I took it upon myself this morning to rent these chairs, to rent the tents, to get the sanitizer and them. This is out of my pocket. I can't keep doing this every day, so I would really appreciate if the country would be able, if the people in the community would be able to donate and assist. As you can see, these are elderly folks. These are people over 60. I shouldn't be having to do this morning, and this is the second day in a row this is happening. By now, people should have realized, government should have realized what's taking place and have put something in place. But we can't wait for that. We can't wait for them to make up their mind what needs to be done. We have to be proactive. We have to take the bull by the horn and do what we need to do. This is our people. These are not homeless people. These are not vegans. This is the Trinidad people talking about the old folks and them, the elders, the ones who was here before us, and this is how we treating them. This wasn't something that this is even voluntary right now. This is something that you could say almost forced upon them, because without the vaccine, people can't operate, people can't do anything. So they need to come out here and get these vaccines on them. This is something that was expected. So let's plan properly and get this thing done the right way. Alright, so
Thank you very much.
I'm doing this myself.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, now we will have to.
Oh boy, you see? Man, I tell you, boy.
Tom, you want to say something?
Go ahead, Tommy.
I'm sorry, I've been having problems with my device.
Don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
But the mismanagement of the health situation has gone so far now. It became a horse and pony show, where you have people crying, people trying, and so on and so forth and so forth. But at the end of the day, if who is in charge of managing our health in Trinidad and Tobago, our health system in Trinidad and Tobago, were doing what they were supposed to do, we wouldn't have all this tralala and fiasco going on today.
We have two pandemics in Trinidad and Tobago right now, you know. The Ministry of Health is a pandemic by itself.
And the Chinese health is a pandemic.
Them causing more pain for people in Trinidad and Tobago more than anything else. I mean, they didn't even know, they didn't even think about it, that you have all these elderly people out there, boy, and you go just have them standing up out there. They didn't even think of, look.
Well, the Rowley administration is a pandemic by itself, to tell you the truth. And the Prime Minister didn't have the decency to call this guy.
Oh.
He should have called this guy and say, I appreciate what you're doing. Give us an idea, or maybe we could help. He could call the population and say, let's support this guy. Call up on the business and say, your country needs you. And what this guy did, we deeply appreciated. Not even a thank you and no kind of support from the Prime Minister. These are things that the Prime Minister could have done to encourage the others who standing on this on the wayside there to jump in. We need people to mobilize. We need a leader to mobilize the country to volunteer.
So Gary, before we go, I know all of you brain hot in here. Let me at least.
I know it kind of.
What? 3 more. 3 more? I'm tired of the whole time up in here sending people in here. 3 more? Alright. Last year, send them in. You, come here. What you do?
Boss, as a murderer, I kill real people.
You murder people? Straight in hell. We need you in here. Get in. Come here. What you do?
Boss, I real rape man, man.
You got reaper man? We need people like you in here. Get in. You're fit for here. You, come here. Where you from?
Dog, I from Trinidad, dog.
Trinidad?
You go to heaven, boy. You done pass through hell already.
Oh God. Oh no.
That's a great note to end on.
No.
That is all going on. That is all going on, man. That is all going on. Somebody said the two pandemic is the PNM and the UNC.
Oh Lord.
That's not
Okay.
a lie.
Boy. So, folks, I want to say we really and truly want to thank you all, for joining us, man. Without you guys, without you guys sticking and staying with us, and what you guys could do, tell a friend to tell a friend. If you guys like how we, what we talk about in here, the people that we bring into the village, tell a friend to tell a friend, because we want to impact some change in the country of Trinidad and Tobago, and we want to stop looking at things from just for this party. We want to look at things from country. When you have a person like Dr. Faith, who's about, forget about she's a member of the PDP, but she can have a significant impact on the COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago because all the bungling going on. I mean, they just can't get a vaccine to give a person a little jab. They just can't even get that right. A little jab, boy. Just a jab in your arm. They can't get that right. They start with alphabet, right? They put it in the soup and they had to get rid of it. They had to take it out of the soup now. Put their hand in the soup and take it out, right? They're going to try something new now and see what happens. It's like, what they're doing is they're throwing spaghetti on the wall and they see what will stick, right? Whatever they stick on the wall, they come back and they try again, right? So today, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago apologized. I mean, we have to give him, as I tell you, he's a genius. I mean, he has never done this in the past. So maybe things are looking up. Just maybe. That's all I can say. Maybe things are looking up, and tomorrow is going to be a better day. So, folks, we want to, hey, boy, who we going to close this show tonight, boy? We got to close this show. Ulrich, you're closing this show tonight. Put your closing comments in the chat. Put your closing comments in the chat. You're going to close the show. Laurie Alexander, welcome. Thank you for enjoying the show. Salim, welcome as well. I think this is the first night. We have quite a few people. Rose, welcome too as well. Linus, thank you for joining us, man. Adita, thank you. Haley as well. Thank you so very kindly, Haley. There were so many people joining us. Kester Lindau, thank you for joining us. Jennifer Bruce, thank you as well. Let me just quickly go through here. Cheryl Solomon, Jennifer Bruce, all the people, Nikisha Sullivan, Dwayne Nurse, Kester Lindau, all the people that join us. Lana that join us. Shelly Ann Lewis, boy. Shelly Ann, new too, boy. There are plenty new people joining us. We thank you guys. Cheryl Solomon. Gregory Nichols. Gayatri also joined us. And of course, all our loyalists join us. Takesha, Cindy J, Steve Trini Lopez, Curtis Monteshad, Joanna Barrows also joined us. And I think Dr. Udan Munilan's sister also joined us earlier. Nikisha joined us as well. Right? Who else joined us? Haley Martin joined us. So, folks, when we get into names, we missed a few. Cheryl Solomon, but we thank you, all of you all, for joining us. And we really appreciate this. Let me quickly go through this. Arjun Singer joined us earlier too as well. Arjun, welcome. Let me see who else here, boy. Rose joined us earlier. Lana. Linda MG joined us too. So, folks, there you have it. I mean, we thank you guys, for coming into the village with the 𝗪𝗪𝗘 and joining us. We really appreciate you guys coming and joining us and staying with us for such a long time. But we thank you so very kindly. So I'm gonna go first. So in the words of Martin Luther King, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at the time of challenge and controversy. From where I sit, this is it. The clock on the wall said that's all I like to say, but I've got to go. Remember, hard work beats talent when talent does not work hard. And for every 60 seconds of anger, you lose 1 minute of happiness. Go ahead, Tommy, you up next.
Well, I'll do as Huxley says, experience is not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. Confucius also said, it does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop. To the graduates, we have the graduates just graduating out of college and those who are looking to go to college. I'd like to say this, especially in Trinidad, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary, and those are the words of Steve Jobs. Pleasant night to everyone. We'll see you at the next show, which is going to be on Tuesday. All the best and a great weekend.
And Diana.
Yes.
Before we go, we want to say condolences to the Winston Soso family on the passing of Winston Soso. You know, we actually had something we were going to share a few days ago, and we didn't share it. So, you know, condolences.
We can close the program with his song, "The Government."
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna get that. So go ahead, Diana.
Okay, I want to say, putting down someone with name calling reveals your own low self-esteem. H.M. Ward. In many countries, there are sometimes only two political parties. One party comes to power and the other party is the opposition. The democratic principle is that the opposition party should not think that the ruling party is the enemy and vice versa. The opposition party is not in power only because the majority of people have not voted them to power. It is not the job of either the opposition or the incumbent to criticize or find fault, and definitely resort to name calling. Minister Hines, to compare your fellow MPs in the UNC who are elected by the people and sit in parliament like you for the people, to say to these professional men and women that if COVID had a face, it would be that of the UNC, goes against the norms of democracy. The opposition party is as much responsible in carrying out the government's policies as the ruling party. Politicians are servants of the people. Visible, acrimonious rivalry between the ruling party and the opposition is a very unhealthy trend, demoralizing your peers tantamounts to bullying, Minister Hines. You have to be mindful of what you say in your very visible capacity. The negative tone could trickle downward and reach as far as the citizens you serve in your environs. Your statement could easily be twisted and used by citizens to taunt each other, causing further divisiveness and disharmony. Minister Hines, it is proven that no democratic government can be long secure without a formidable opposition. Whenever the system of parliamentary democracy has been established, the importance of a healthy, effective, vigilant, and ever alert opposition has been fully realized as something indispensable. As a government of, for, and by the people, Minister Hines, you and your incumbent colleagues should be working through discussion, cooperation, and persuasion in a healthy manner, not referring to your colleagues as the face of COVID. This is your resident poet, Diana Benskin, bidding you auf Wiedersehen until we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. And Ulrich is going to close the program. Ulrich says, thank you as well, Trinidad. Stop thinking party and start thinking country. Ulrich, thank you very kindly. And that's the way we do it here in the village with the Dark Triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. You know, we want to get our listeners involved in what we do here in the village because we think that's very important. So we're going to go out tonight with Winston Soso, the government. You know, again, folks, thank you so very kindly. We appreciate it. We appreciate all of you. You know, continue to pray. You know, of course, do all the things that's required so we could all deal with this COVID-19. So here's Winston Soso, the government. Take care, people.
You're listening to
1 minute. Oh, here we go.
This is Caribbean.
I want to come home and live again, but I hear the country so hard. I'm so hurt I can't stand the pain. Cause how I bust and I brag, I went out and tell the world my country, life is so beautiful, happy. I come home, they tell me how it ain't easy. We pressure, we getting now, don't kill me. I hear they say the government mess up. Tell them playing innocent, can't work. All who think the government mess up, join and get rid of them if they won't stop. Just tell them you want a change. Tell them you want a change. They better do right. Nothing can keep me from this country, cause here is where I was born. I never believed we could go hungry, even if the pressure is on. We were always a land of love and together, but nowadays we fight and rob each other. Who's to blame for bringing on the pressure? Let's make a change, the time is now or never. I hear they say the government mess up. Tell them playing innocent, can't work. All who think the government mess up, join and get rid of them if they won't stop. Just tell them you want a change. Tell them you want a change. What can they ever do right? We can't go on living on a promise, and that's what governments do.
Say that again?
How much longer will they be dishonest? So many things they promise to you. Don't sit down and let them rule this country. You must be strong and express the way you feel. They're doing wrong.
wrong, so you must find someone to lead this country on, so we can live and love in peace. I hear they say the government mess up. Tell them playing innocent can't work. When all who think the government mess up, join and get the rid of them if they won't stop. Just tell them you want to change. Tell them you want to change.
This is Caribbean.
Yeah, I'm listening.
I hear they say the government mess up. Tell them playing innocent can't work. We better do